Chapter 562. Don't worry, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. Senior Bai and the other senior brothers are here to help. How can I not be at ease? Moreover, I have confidence in the quality of our Tianmu Peak's disciples. Oh right, there's also Headmaster Chen and Wu Dalong, who would be looking for trouble here. Alright, since that's the case, the disciples have finished handing over their bets. Junior brother, please accept these records. As he spoke, Bai Huan handed over the records in his hands, and the other's hands to Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua took it with a smile and put it in his arms, saying, "It's all in the past, why bother?" That's right, with the jade boxes piled up like a small mountain in front of him, who would care about what was written in the account book? If it wasn't too eye-catching, Zhang Xiaohua almost wanted to tear the records into pieces and throw them into the air, letting them dance like snowflakes to show his joy. Chen Fengxiao saw that Zhang Xiaohua wasn't as ecstatic as he imagined, and his heart jumped. Although Zhang Xiaohua had said earlier that he didn't care about the position of headmaster of Tianmu Peak, he couldn't let his guard down. He turned to Wu Zhouxiu, who was also deep in thought, and said, "Dalong, I think you should also urge the Vajras to hand over their bets? Quickly hand over the pills worth 150 taels of gold." At the mention of the word gold, Wu Zhouxiu's heart ached for no reason, and he said awkwardly, "This is not a small number. Although they also have extra pills, it may be beyond their ability to take out so much at once. They still have to rely on me to support them." Zhang Xiaohua heard Wu Zhouxiu's words and naturally knew what he meant. He said, "Don't worry, Wu Dalong. If there aren't enough pills, can't we use herbs to replace them?" Wu Zhouxiu shook his head. Junior brother Ren just came to Tianmu Peak and doesn't know much about the market. Herbs aren't popular. Even if they're old, they can't compare to pills. The 10 Vajras in my hands are all masters of stockpiling pills. Where would they keep any herbs? It's impossible for each of them to take out a Yuhuandin pill. Then he glanced at Chen Fengxiao and said, "Just now, I saw that junior brother Ren even wanted some inconspicuous herbs. It just so happens that I have a batch of herbs that are about 40 years old. The disciples and consecrators of our pill repository hall don't know what they are." Before Wu Dalong could finish his sentence, Chen Fengxiao interrupted. If Wu Dalong hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten about it. Is it the batch of herbs that my grass division disciples collected during the Orchid Dusk refinement? Quiet Orchid Twilight refinement. Zhang Xiaohua frowned as she heard this name again. Wu Zhouxiu smiled and said, "Head Chen, it's that batch of medicinal herbs. However, a few years ago, you lost the medicinal pills to my pill department. Now it belongs to our pill department. Although that batch of herbs is not young, we don't know their uses. Even the consecrators of our pill repository hall don't recognize them. That's why they left them at Tianmu Peak for us to deal with. Although my grass division lost to you, it's not worth 150 taels of gold." When did I say that this batch of unknown herbs is worth 150 taels of gold? To be honest, your grass division is really something. Once you don't have any medicinal pills, you use herbs as compensation. You're like this, and your disciples are also like this. Do you know how many medicinal herbs you've given us in exchange for pills over the past 10 years? This? Chen Fengxiao was extremely embarrassed. Moreover, don't you see these herbs in front of you? You can say that they're all in the hands of your grass division. Where do you think our pill department got these herbs from? Chen Fengxiao still touched his chin and didn't speak. Wu Zhouxiu continued to make things difficult. Moreover, the 10 great guardian deities won a lot of herbs from you, but they don't want to keep them. What do you think we should do? Without waiting for Chen Fengxiao to say anything, or perhaps he didn't expect him to say anything, Wu Zhouxiu continued. These herbs can only be held in my hands. How much do you think I've accumulated over the years? Then he pointed to the piles of jade boxes and said, "More than this, not less." Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up. However, he didn't reply. He knew that Wu Zhouxiu naturally had his reasons for saying so much. If he hastily replied, he would lose the initiative. Chen Fengxiao looked at Zhang Xiaohua and didn't say anything. He smiled and said, "Wu Dalong, isn't this just right? I thought that the heavens sent junior brother Ren to help me, but who would have thought that it was to solve your big problem? Didn't junior brother Ren say that as long as it's herbs, it's fine? Unknown herbs can also be used as compensation for pills. Haha, I've made the decision. Let's do it this way. That batch of herbs that our grass division gave you will be calculated according to the amount of pills we gave you in the past. The ones in your hands will also be calculated according to this amount. What do you think? Wu Zhoushu spoke until his mouth was dry. Didn't he just want such a promise? Seeing this, he was overjoyed and said, "If junior brother Ren doesn't have any objections, then I'll let the disciples call the herbs and the 3 Vajras over." Zhang Xiaohua nodded. Since Headmaster Chen has said so, how can I not agree? Chen Fengxiao suddenly said, "Wu Dalong, the bet between our 2 clans still needs to be settled with pills. I don't want those herbs." Wu Zhoushu looked at Chen Fengxiao and said with narrowed eyes, "If junior brother Ren didn't want these herbs, I really want to use these herbs as compensation for your pills. However, since junior brother Ren needs them, even if you want them, I don't have any extra." Then he turned his head and asked, "Junior brother Ren, senior brother is a little curious. What do you want these herbs for? Ordinary herbs are fine, but these unknown herbs are completely useless. Don't tell me you want to refine pills?" When these words were said, Chen Fengxiao's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Sai Wu Dalong, you don't know. When I was talking to senior brother Bai about the herbs, I felt that it was too eye-catching to have so many pills in my hands. I'm a disciple of the grass division, so it shouldn't be a problem to have a few more herbs. Moreover, I've just arrived at Tianmu Peak. Using pills to exchange for herbs can be considered as contributing to the grass division brothers and gaining popularity." Then he smiled bitterly. "But I didn't think that the senior brothers of the pill division would also want to exchange. Do you think I should exchange or not? Actually, these herbs of yours, I don't want to exchange them. What do I want these herbs for? I don't know how to refine pills." Then he said with a crying face, "Why don't you empathize with me a little and use pills to repay the 150 taels of gold?" Wu Zhoushu raised his head and said, "The moon is already high up in the sky. It's really not early anymore. Junior brother Ren, you should rest early. I'll get someone to send the herbs over tomorrow morning. And you don't have to look carefully at these piles of herbs. I can guarantee that the disciples of Tianmu Peak don't have any more herbs. Actually no one is interested in your herbs." After saying that, he didn't bid farewell to Zhang Xiaohua and Chen Fengxiao and walked away. He was afraid that Zhang Xiaohua would regret telling him about the herbs and pills. When Wu Zhoushu walked out of the small courtyard, Chen Fengxiao also laughed loudly and cupped his hands. "Little brother, rest early. Tomorrow, you'll have enough energy to exchange the herbs of the pill division. Ha ha ha, it's been a long time since I've been so happy. Today, I actually saw Wu Dalong suffer again." Chen Fengxiao led by Huan and the rest out of the small courtyard. The courtyard that had been bustling for the entire afternoon finally regained its silence. Zhang Xiaohua walked them to the door of the small courtyard and watched them leave before closing the door. Looking at the mountain of jade boxes, he smiled bitterly and was happy at the same time. He smiled bitterly because he really intended to keep a low profile and calm. He didn't expect to make such a big move. Although these herbs were like weeds, but if they were all concentrated in one person's hands, then there would be problems. Didn't Wu Zhoushu also sound him out just now? Presumably, Chen Fengxiao also knew that he wanted to refine pills. It was just that it involved his interests, so he didn't say it out loud. Did he know how to refine pills? Maybe he did. What made Zhang Xiaohua pleasantly surprised was that not only the mountain of herbs, even the jade boxes seemed to be worth more than 100 taels of gold. He didn't sweat in these 3 battles for nothing. But how should he take away these herbs and jade boxes? The space in the money bag was filled with those jade coffin lids. Alas, there would actually be a day where he would be troubled by too many valuable things. This was something that the money grubber Zhang Xiaohua had never thought of. Forget it, I'll just pile them here first. In any case, they're worthless goods in their eyes. As for the herbs, I'll just have to wait until I have time to refine them into pills in the future. Anyway, there are still many jade bottles in the money bag. They're probably used to store pills. As for the jade boxes, they can't be wasted. When I refine pills, I'll casually refine them and sell them for a good price. When he finished thinking, he saw that it was indeed not early. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He struck out the jade talisman, set up a restriction, and began cultivating the Carefree Heart Sutra. Spreading incense cult, White Mountain Peak, 100 Herb Hall. An old man with a purplish-red face and a bald head, leaving only a ring of white hair around him, lazily sat on the chair in the middle. Although this old man's hair was already white, his face was abnormally fair and tender. Only the deep crow's feet at the corner of his eyes revealed his age. He was the pill-spreading hall's hall master, Elder Zishan. Standing respectfully below the hall was Yang Yao. At this moment, Elder Zishan was frowning and scratching his smooth forehead with his hand. No one knew what he was worried about. Yang Yao looked carefully from below the hall and asked tentatively, "Hall Master, you've been gone for several days. Why did you come back so soon, Sai?" Elder Zishan sighed and said, "These are all miscellaneous matters of the sect. There's no need for our pill-spreading hall to worry about them. It's just that the matter of First Faith Peak seems to have caused the sect leader to scratch his head. He seems to be blaming us. Sai, what does this have to do with us? It's just that the Misty Hall doesn't care about us because they're close to the sect leader. What can we do?" "Ah, First Faith Peak. This lowly one has always known that they don't get along with the other halls. There's often friction. We're only in charge of medicinal herbs and pills. It shouldn't have anything to do with them, right?" "Sai, you don't know. They're also..." "Forget it. Why am I telling you this? I'll think of a way to reply to the sect leader first. Right, how did your trip to Rejuvenation Valley go this time?" Chapter 563. When Yang Yao heard this, he smiled and said, "I was just about to report to Hall Master. Look, what do you think this is?" After he finished speaking, he took out the jade box from his bosom and respectfully handed it over. Old man Zishan received it and casually opened it. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes as he said, "What's the meaning of this, Commander Nia? The last few times I asked him for it, he always refused. Why did he take the initiative to give it to me this time? Something must have happened." When Yang Yao heard this, he broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly bowed. "Hall Master, please calm down. This lowly one is merely taking into account the many years of relationship between Rejuvenation Valley and the Fragrant Cult. Moreover, that Marshal Nia is also very familiar with our pill-expanding hall. He has always given us a lot of gifts, but he has never spoken, that's it? You agreed just like that?" Old man Purple Herb stared at Yang Yao and asked, "This? I saw that he took out this daylily grass, and I also remembered that the hall master had asked for it many times. Thinking that there was no harm in it, I agreed." Elder Violet Herb glanced at the carefree grass and said, "Although this herb is rare, it doesn't have much use in reality. It's only used to refine pills. Do you think Rejuvenation Valley has this ability? When the time comes, won't he still be sent to our fragrant religion? He wants us to refine it for him? I'm just telling him so that he can send the herbs over when he finds out. What about you?" This lowly one Yang Yao didn't dare to hide anything from Elder Sage, and told him about how Vice Hall Master Su had taken the short sword. Taking advantage of the situation, he said, "Hall Master, you also know that Chen Fengxiao has always made things difficult for Rejuvenation Valley. Normal medicine apprentices will lose a layer of skin when they go to him. Although this Ren Xiaoyao knows a bit of martial arts, he's still no match for Chen Fengxiao. Moreover, he has 5 or 6 arhats under him. He'll definitely be at a disadvantage. Elder, you should quickly transfer Ren Xiaoyao back to White Mountain Peak." Old man Purple Herb didn't answer. He only said, "I knew you wouldn't do things for him for free. You're also a sentimental person. You only have one friend in the martial world, Commander Nia, and you'll never see him again. It's understandable that you're soft-hearted hearing this." Yang Yao was overjoyed and said, "Many thanks for Hall Master's understanding." "Haha, understanding is one thing. You disregarded the rules of the sect and took unqualified medicine apprentices from the Rejuvenation Valley into the Fragrant Cult without permission. You still have to bear this crime." Yang Yao's face was ashen as he said, "Yes, please punish me, Hall Master. Originally, I wanted to arrange a good position for you to make up for your hard work all these years. Since you've made a mistake, You should make up for it with good deeds. You don't have to take this position. Yang Yao was somewhat delighted. Many thanks for Hall Master's benevolence. As expected, you're fair in your rewards and punishments. Old Man Purple Herb snorted through his nose. Even Vice Hall Master Su knows about it. If I still don't reward and punish clearly, how will I explain it to the sect? You should be careful in your work and observe the consequences. However, Yang Yao was overjoyed and said, I won't dare to be so muddle-headed again. Sigh, at that time, I saw how worried Commander Nie was for his daughter, so I had the heart to lick her and agreed easily. He's no different from a normal medicine apprentice. You only need to let people keep a close eye on him. This Xiao Yao is not easy to hide. From your description, I can tell that he's not a real medicine apprentice. Although Vice Hall Master Su doesn't have good intentions, it's exactly what I want. Who would know that he's a medicine apprentice sent by the Rejuvenation Valley if I threw him far away at Tianmu Peak? Even if someone knew, this information would only be passed back to Baiyu Peak. No one else would know. After 2 years, I'll let him come back. Won't everything become natural then? But, isn't there still Chen Fengxiao at Tianmu Peak? Old Man Purple Herb waved his hand. Didn't you say that Commander Nie still wants him to break through the outer sect and leave the fragrant cult? It's a good opportunity for him to temper himself under Chen Fengxiao and help him grow. Besides, Vice Hall Master Su just sent him to Tianmu Peak. Do you think it's appropriate for me to send him back to Baiyu Peak? Hall Master is wise. This lowly one is slow-witted and didn't think of this. Since Vice Hall Master Su knows about it and didn't make it clear, I don't think he will mention it again in the future. After 1.5 years, the disciples will have grown taller, and no one will know about it. This matter will be over. Yes, it's better to be safe than sorry. You have to send someone to keep an eye on them. Don't make any mistakes. Report to me immediately if there are any abnormalities. Yes, this lowly one will be careful. You should rest early. I rest. I still have other things to do. Go out and say that if there's nothing important, don't come in and disturb me. Yes, this lowly one will take his leave. Yang Yao bowed and slowly retreated. A disciple was standing at the door in a hurry. When he saw Yang Yao come out, he was about to enter when Yang Yao stopped him. Hall Master said that if there's nothing important, don't go in and disturb him. Is your matter very important? The disciple hesitated. It's nothing important. It's just some movements of the disciples outside. Then you can choose whether to go in or not. After speaking, Yang Yao also turned and left. Only now did he truly feel at ease. The matter of Rejuvenation Valley was truly over. It was just that the divine weapon in his hands was gone. But it was also good. If it wasn't for the fact that the Hall Master didn't think that he had gained any benefits, he would have been punished long ago. As long as he had that good position, there was still hope in the future. As long as he hugged the Hall Master's thigh, there shouldn't be any problems. Yang Yao left happily, still thinking about the 100-flower wine in the house. The disciple standing in front of the 100-herb hall hesitated for a while, but still turned and went back to rest. It was just a trivial matter. It was just some miscellaneous matters regarding the gambling fight on Tianmu Peak. It really wasn't important at all. At the same time, in an exquisite little house, Vice Hall Master Su was sipping tea. A disciple stood respectfully to the side, wiping the sweat on his head from time to time, and saying something. Suddenly, Vice Hall Master Su was startled. He interrupted that person and asked, "What? You're saying that Ren Xiaoyao has a golden leaf in his bag? How much?" "I'm not sure either." Senior Brother Cheng grabbed a handful. He said it was 50 taels. "I think there should be at least 500 taels in there. Good, this Ren Xiaoyao is really something." Continue. Thus, that disciple recounted everything that had happened after Zhang Xiaohua had arrived at Tianmu Peak. Vice Hall Master Su nodded as he listened. This Ren Xiaoyao is really straightforward. He even dares to talk back to his senior brother. However, his luck is not bad. He just happened to meet Chen Fengxiao, who was scheming against Wuzhou ruins. Otherwise, he would have been taken care of by the others. Hall Master Su, this Ren Xiaoyao even beat Zhou Shuming. He's the best disciple in our Dan department. How can I not know what kind of martial arts Zhou Sheming has? Didn't you just say that the two of them were only competing in Qinggong? With Zhou Sheming's Qinggong, he could only show it off at Tianmu Peak. For Ren Xiaorao to beat him by a distance, it would be very normal. However, what does he mean by exchanging elixirs for medicinal herbs? Dalong doesn't understand no matter how he thinks about it. If it's not alchemy, then it's the reason he said it. It was a slip of the tongue, and there's no way to take it back. Alchemy? Vice Hall Master Su sneered. He's just a medicine boy from Rejuvenation Valley. Don't you know what Rejuvenation Valley is like? It's just a place that provides us medicine boys. Every time, they send some medicinal herbs for our Dan department's consecrators to help refine. What kind of elixirs can a mere medicine boy from Rejuvenation Valley refine? He just arrived at Tianmu Peak and didn't know the use of elixirs. He wanted to use elixirs to win people's hearts. Hee, now that the elixirs have been exchanged for a bunch of useless medicinal herbs, let's see how he can win people's hearts. Hall Master is wise. Dalong seems to have said the same thing. However, he's not sure. Yes, of course he's not sure. He just found out about Ren Xiaoyao's background. Oh right, let Wu Zhouxu keep a close eye on Ren Xiaoyao. This 500 taels of gold leaf is a very good thing. I haven't seen such an attractive yellow and white item in a long time. That's what Dalong planned to do. He wanted to win the gold leaf to show his filial piety to you, but who knew? It's all right. I appreciate Wu Zhouxu's intentions. However, he's really stupid. How could he fall into Chen Fengxiao's trap? Wasn't it always him who schemed against Chen Fengxiao? Dalong must have been careless. He's always suppressed Chen Fengxiao on Tianmu Peak. Alright, he's already lost. We'll get it back in the future. Let him keep a close eye on him. If there's a chance, he'll get that burden. Yes, I'll definitely report to Wu Dalong. In addition, as long as you leak a little information to Ren Xiaoyao, he'll definitely send the gold leaf to Hall Master. Bullshit, Vice Hall Master Su scolded. What do you know? If that's the case, why would I tell you? You only need to tell Wu Zhouxu what I said. Yes, I know. I wouldn't dare. The disciple was so scared that he quickly apologized. Oh right, when you came to White U Peak, was our White U Peak's messenger in front or behind you? He was in front of me. I was afraid of attracting his attention, so I deliberately slowed down. He must have reported to Hall Master by now. Vice Hall Master Su nodded. The disciple also seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, the disciple said, Dalong also said that the Orchid Evening Refinement is about to begin. What's Hall Master's plan? Vice Hall Master Su's eyes lit up when he heard this. He immediately waved his hand and said, there's still a few months left. What's the hurry? Besides, the disciples of the pill department can't enter. Could it be that he has some ideas? Please cast a monthly vote and a recommendation vote. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 564. The disciple bowed and said, about this, Dalong didn't tell me. But in my opinion, this Orchid Evening Refinement is held once every 5 years and has long become a custom. Dalong may not have any ideas of his own. Deputy Hall Master Su snorted. Since he doesn't have any ideas of his own, then just wait for the Hall Master's arrangement. Although the list is drawn up by me, doesn't the Hall Master still have to look through it? Our pill-expanding hall people are only there to pick herbs. What can we achieve? The disciple smiled apologetically. This list has always been drawn up by the Hall Master, but since 15 years ago, Hall Master Su was entrusted to handle this matter. Moreover, the Hall Master is now old and many of the Hall's affairs have to be entrusted to Hall Master Su. Dalong thinks that this year, you should still be in charge of this matter? Deputy Hall Master Su tilted his head. Did Wu Zhouxu tell you this? No, but what Dalong usually says and what I usually see is more or less like this. You are well behaved. But this kind of thing can't be said. Just do your job well, and I will naturally take note of it. Thank you for your guidance, Hall Master. The disciple was overjoyed and bowed to express his gratitude. Well, rest early. Go back early tomorrow morning, and let Wu Zhou keep an eye on this Ren Xiaoyao. Yes, I will follow Hall Master's orders. Far away, Zhang Xiaohua, who was cultivating the Carefree Heart Sutra with his eyes closed in a small courtyard on Heaven Eye Peak, did not know that his every move had already been noticed by the two Hall Masters. It was even to the extent that someone was already thinking about his treasure. Wu Zhou was also a man of his word. Early the next morning, he sent Yi Qingliao, Qi Yuntian and Cheng Shi to bring over a batch of jade boxes. Zhang Xiaohua did not know if the herbs inside were worth his 150 taels of gold. But he already knew that Wu Zhou would not be shortchanged at this point. Thus he quickly signed on a piece of white paper. After sending them off, he happily looked at the herbs in the courtyard. The more he looked, the more he wanted to see them. At this time, he saw Bai Huan enter the courtyard with a gloomy look on his face. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and asked curiously, "Senior Bai, what are you doing? Are you going to move in too?" "Sigh, that's right." Bai Huan sighed. "Junior brother Ren. I was woken up by senior brother Qiu early in the morning. He said that it was Headmaster Chen's idea. Your place is too remote, and it's not good to leave so many herbs unattended. Also, this courtyard needs to be cleaned. Yes, you're now the rising star of our grass division, and the victory of the bet will all depend on you. You're still young, and you can't be left alone so." "So you sent senior brother Bai here?" Zhang Xiaohua asked with a smile. "Exactly." Bai Huan took the bedding into the house and looked up at the bamboo forest outside the yard. She looked very uneasy and whispered, "Is it quiet in this yard at night?" "Quiet, of course it's quiet. There's only the sound of the wind blowing through the bamboo forest. It seems like someone is crying," Zhang Xiaohua said gloomily. "I see. Junior brother Ren, aren't you afraid?" Bai Huan asked with a trembling voice. "Of course I'm afraid. I'm afraid that someone will suddenly knock on the door at this moment." Someone suddenly knocked on the door. Aya, although it was broad daylight, Bai Huan almost jumped up. She hid behind Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Could it be that there's really a ghost?" Before she finished speaking, a voice came from the door of the courtyard. "Is junior brother Ren of the grass division here?" Zhang Xiaohua said loudly, "This is the place. Please come in." The courtyard door was pushed open, and a strong man with a beard walked in. Bai Huan, who was hiding behind Zhang Xiaohua, poked her head out. Seeing that it was a living person, she forced herself to say, "Are you senior fellow apprentice Liao of the Dan department?" "Aya, junior brother Bai is also here?" "That's me." Then he cupped his hands and said, "I came here in a hurry. Please forgive me," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. "We're all brothers. Why are you so polite? What's the matter, senior brother Liao?" "I heard that junior brother Ren can use herbs to exchange for pills. Is that true?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "There is indeed such a thing. It's just that these past few days, the senior brothers have lost to this junior brother. They all used herbs to exchange for pills. This junior brother doesn't have many pills, so even if I want to exchange with senior brother Liao, I can't." Senior brother Liao said with a smile, "I went down the mountain to do some business. When I came back, I heard that junior brother Ren was killing people everywhere. Congratulations." "It's nothing. It's just luck. Senior brother Liao, please don't laugh. Junior brother Ren, you don't have to be so polite. I heard that even the eldest brother of the pill division lost to you a few bottles of pills. I don't want more. Can I exchange a few bone solidifying pills?" Well, Zhang Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. He didn't have many bone solidifying pills in his hand, and he just exchanged 3 for Bai Huan. Although he didn't like bone solidifying pills, he still wanted to keep a few for research. When senior brother Liao saw that Zhang Xiaohua was in a difficult position, he took out 2 jade boxes from his bosom and handed them over. "I know I've made things difficult for junior brother Ren, but can you take a look at the age of these 2 medicinal herbs? If it's possible, please give me a few." Seeing that senior brother Liao was so confident, Zhang Xiaohua knew that there were good things in these jade boxes. Sure enough, when he opened the jade boxes, there were 2 40-year-old unknown herbs. Before Zhang Xiaohua could speak, Bai Huan smiled and said, "Senior brother Liao is so calculating. Although these 2 herbs are old, they don't have any use. How can junior brother Ren agree? Senior brother Liao frowned and said, I heard that junior brother Ren only cares about the age of the herbs. He doesn't care about the herbs. But if it's other herbs, I don't have them here. Speaking of this, his eyes lit up and he eagerly said, if I know where to pick herbs that are old enough, I can tell junior brother Ren the location. Will junior brother Ren be willing to part with them? Don't. Junior brother Ren, there are many places in the 18 peaks of the fragrant religion that can produce mature herbs. But those places are not places that ordinary disciples like us can go. Even if you know where they are, you may not be able to pick them. Junior brother Bai doesn't know. If junior brother Ren is fated to go to the place I mentioned, he will definitely be able to go there. Moreover, there are many herbs there. They are very old and most of them are unknown. This is something I accidentally learned many years ago. I can basically guarantee that other than me, there shouldn't be many people who know about it. Oh. Zhang Xiaohua was interested when she heard this. What did he want? Wasn't it just some unknown herbs? They were old enough. Even if he used the Yuhuandan pill to exchange, Zhang Xiaohua would still be happy. So she asked, since senior brother Liao is in such a hurry, then junior brother will not care whether he is fated or not. These 2 herbs and your information can be exchanged for 3-inch bone congealing pills. What do you think? Senior brother Liao was overjoyed and said. This Liao thought that 2 pills would be enough. Junior brother Ren actually agreed to 3 pills. This is really generous. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She was already regretting it. She secretly said, he is being generous again. Could it be that I am a sucker in the eyes of the Tianmu Peak disciples? Fine, when I have time, I must ask senior brother Bai about the market price of these pills. I don't want to be taken advantage of and ruin my reputation. However, she still said, senior brother Liao has worked hard for the haul. Junior brother feels that you have returned today, and can't help but want to get closer to you. Senior brother Liao, please tell junior brother the news. Haha, it's just official business. It can't be considered hard work. How can it be compared to junior brother's hard work? Senior brother Liao said, but did not mention the place. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua walked back into the house and took out a jade bottle. She handed it to senior brother Liao and said, senior brother, take a look. Is there anything inside? Senior brother Liao opened the bottle and took a look. His face was overjoyed. He walked forward and whispered into Zhang Xiaohua's ear for a long time. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of excitement. When he finished speaking, she smiled bitterly and said, this is the place that senior brother Liao was talking about. Do you think I can go and pick it? Senior brother Liao smiled and said, this place is not an important place in the hall. As long as junior brother is fated to go there, you will definitely be able to pick it. I am not lying to you about this. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. Senior brother Liao is right. As you said, junior brother has the chance to pick it. All right, the pills have been exchanged. Senior brother Liao, is there anything else? Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was sending him off, senior brother Liao did not stay any longer. He said a few words of thanks and walked away. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was secretly at a disadvantage, Bai Huan muttered, I knew that there are no good people in the pill department. I have not seen much of this senior brother Liao, so I did not know that his character was so bad. Junior brother Ren, where is the place that he mentioned? Zhang Xiaohua looked at Bai Huan with interest. She waved her hand and said, senior brother Liao is right. It depends on my fate. He pointed this out early on, but unfortunately I did not understand. Then, she looked at the 2 herbs in her hand and said, with these 2 herbs, it is not too bad to give him 3 pills. Herbs? Bai Huan snorted and said, they are worthless things. While they were talking, the door of the small courtyard was pushed open again. It was Chen Fengxiao and Qiu Weicheng who came in. Zhang Xiaohua and Bai Huan went forward and bowed. Chen Fengxiao looked at Bai Huan and said to Zhang Xiaohua with a smile, I saw that you have a lot of herbs here and the courtyard is big. No one is cleaning, so I asked Bai Huan to come and help you. Although there are many disciples in Tianmu Peak, Bai Huan is the first one you know. I hope you are satisfied with my arrangement. Zhang Xiaohua sneered in her heart. You are just worried about me. Do you think I would not know that you have more eyes and ears watching me? It would be strange if you didn't pay any attention to me. Zhang Xiaohua cupped her hands. Thank you for your concern, Headmaster Chen. I was just thinking about how to move this pile of herbs into the house. With senior brother Bai here, I can do other things. I will have to trouble senior brother Bai to move these herbs into the house. Move into the house? By myself? Bai Huan was stunned. Then, she looked at the few jade boxes that were as big as a small mountain. She smiled bitterly. How unlucky was she? Wasn't it just a few days ago when she was on duty and was the first one to see Ren Xiaoyao? Why? Chapter 565. What? Little brother still wants to do his own things? Chen Fengxiao was obviously stunned and asked. He did not expect Zhang Xiaohua to say such a thing. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Leader Chen, have you forgotten? I told you a few days ago that I want to follow the rules of the grass division and find a few medicine fields at the peak of Tianmu Peak to take care of. Chen Fengxiao smiled bitterly and said, Little brother, you really know how to joke. Although there are many medicine fields at Tianmu Peak, there are even more disciples in the grass division. Little brother, you have good skills and can't waste them on the medicine fields. It's better to use them properly. Zhang Xiaohua said seriously. Leader Chen, I'm not joking. If not, I wouldn't have said so much to you a few days ago. I'm a medicine boy sent by Rejuvenation Valley. If I don't take care of the medicine fields properly, wouldn't the reputation of Rejuvenation Valley be tarnished? This Chen Fengxiao did not know how to answer. He could only criticize in his heart. I've never seen anyone like you. Everyone else hides far away from the medicine fields, but you just have to go to the front of the medicine fields. A few days ago, I thought you were just being perfunctory. Who would have thought that you would really do it? Seeing Chen Fengxiao in a difficult position, Qiu Weicheng said softly, Leader Chen, aren't there a few medicine fields at the east of Tianmu Peak that can't germinate? Why don't you let junior brother Ren take care of it? Anyway, there's nothing to do and it's very relaxing. If leader needs anything, you can also let junior brother Ren come over in time. That's true. Although those fields can't germinate, they still need a disciple to take care of it. Although it's an easy job, the original disciples have already slacked off and complained that it's too far away. Junior brother Ren's Qinggong is not bad. It's a good choice. Chen Fengxiao nodded slightly. Is there a place to stay beside the medicine fields? Zhang Xiaohua asked again. Yes, there's a small house, Chen Fengxiao said and then asked in surprise. Junior brother Ren can't really be living on the peak, right? That's exactly what I was thinking, Zhang Xiaohua said resolutely. But Chen Feng smiled and said two words, but he didn't continue persuading her. Zhang Xiaohua was far away from the rest of the disciples, so he was at ease. Hence, he looked at junior brother Ren and said, Then junior brother Bai will have to suffer and follow junior brother Ren to the summit of Tianmu Peak? There's only junior brother Ren there, so we're also worried. Don't you think so, junior brother Bai? Of course, that's how it should be. Junior brother Ren has been working hard in the herbal field, so I'm just going to give him some food and water. Junior brother Bai, you don't have to worry about such trivial matters. I'll arrange for someone to deliver food to you. You just have to look after the medicinal field and do your job well. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, That's good. If senior brother Bai delivers food every day, I can't afford it. Oh, right, these medicinal herbs? Chen Fengxiao waved his hand and said, Little brother, don't worry. There aren't many people here, and the medicinal herbs aren't valuable. I'll inform the disciples of the grass department, and Wu Dalong to inform the disciples of the pill department not to come to this small courtyard. Good. Zhang Xiaohua said 3 good words in a row and said, Now that everything here is settled, let's hurry up and go up the mountain. My job is to plant the medicine fields, and my hands are itching to do some work after not doing any work for a few days. Chen Fengxiao smiled bitterly and said, Little brother, you don't have to be so impatient. I came this time to see if the pills that the pill department lost to you have been delivered. I didn't plan to leave you at the peak. Zhang Xiaohua pointed to the jade box next to him and said, Wu Dalong sent someone to deliver it early in the morning. I didn't count it carefully, so it shouldn't be too bad. Well, since it's been delivered, I can rest assured. Little brother, This gambling fight can be considered to have ended satisfactorily. If you want to earn more, you'll have to wait for the next gambling fight. The next gambling fight. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. When will that be? Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's eagerness, Chen Fengxiao was secretly delighted. He said, "There's no specific time interval between the gambling fights. Let's see if there's an opportunity." However, the pill department lost too badly this time, so they'll have to rest for a few days. Little brother, don't be impatient. Stay at Tianmu Peak for now. There'll be plenty of time for you to earn more medicinal pills. Okay. Zhang Xiaohua clapped his hands again. Then I'll have to trouble Headmaster Chen to help me settle the matter of staying at the peak. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was urging him again, Chen Fengxiao could only say, "Okay, let's go. Let's go to the peak of Tianmu Peak to see where little brother will settle down in the future." There was only one way to the top of the mountain. It was the small path that Zhou Shuming and Zhang Xiaohua had passed through when they competed in lightness skill. Halfway through, the path was divided into two, leading to the east and west peaks respectively. Bai Huan led the way in front to the east. Xiao Weicheng explained, "Tianmu Peak is within the sphere of influence of the pill department. The pill department and the grass department have their own areas of operation. The west side of the peak belongs to the pill department. That's where they refine pills. Under normal circumstances, people from the grass department are not allowed to go there." Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, "Why are they refining pills at such a high place?" Qiu Weicheng said, "Most of the areas of Tianmu Peak, such as the east, south and north, are used to grow herbs. Only the west side has many pill rooms from the bottom to the peak. The pill rooms at the top are used by a few old consecrators." Zhang Xiaohua asked again, "When I was in Rejuvenation Valley, I saw disciples refining pills. They used earth fire. Could it be that there's earth fire on Tianmu Peak too?" Chen Fengxiao shook his head and said, "According to Wu Dalong's words, earth fire seems to be used. However, he doesn't know how there is earth fire at such a high place. Oh, our cult of fragrance has many strange things. Little brother, you'll get used to it slowly." Many strange things? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. "Little brother, you can walk around freely on Tianmu Peak. However, you must not go near the pill rooms of the consecrators on the west side. That is the rule of our pill department. If little brother is interested in refining pills, you can look for Wu Dalong in the future. Don't act on your own." Chen Fengxiao warned with a deeper meaning. As they spoke, they arrived at the east side of Tianmu Peak. Facing the warm sunshine, they could see that on the wide slope of the east side, there was a neat and tidy herbal field. However, this herbal field was the same as the one in Huanxi Mountain Manor. It was barren, without a single herb in sight. High up on the ridge of the field in a flat area, there was an exquisite little house. It looked very elegant. Chen Feng smiled and pointed at the little house. "That is where the disciples rest during the day. They also go down the mountain at night. In the future, it will be little brother and junior brother Bai's place to stay." Bai Huan's face was gloomy. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the blazing sun and the boundless white clouds below the peak. She smiled and said, "This place is like a fairyland. Even if we live here for a lifetime, we won't be bored." Chen Fengxiao gave her a thumbs up. "Little brother, good ambition, good realm." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and shook her head. She pointed to the medicine field and asked, "Headmaster Chen, are these the non-germinating herbs? Are you sure there are seeds in this medicine field?" Chen Fengxiao laughed and said, "The medicine field on the east side was personally brought by the inner disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak. I personally planted the seeds in the field. How can I not be sure?" "Then how can they not germinate? This is the first time I've seen such a strange thing," Zhang Xiaohua deliberately asked. "Who knows? Anyway, every few years, the inner disciples will bring a batch of non-germinating seeds and plant them here. Since they won't germinate, where did the seeds come from? Well, if the inner disciples don't say it, we can only guess. We can't take it seriously." Zhang Xiaohua was about to continue asking when she saw several disciples walking lazily on the mountain path. When they saw Chen Fengxiao and the others, they were very surprised. They quickly ran over and saluted. "We didn't know Headmaster Chen was coming today. Sorry for not going out to meet you." Seeing the somewhat panicked expressions of the disciples and the weird welcome, Qin Fengxiao waved his hand and said, "What time is it now? You all just arrived?" One of the disciples smiled and said, "Headmaster Chen is wise. These medicine fields are just weeding and watering. It's no big deal whether it's morning or evening. So we can't help but slack off a little. Moreover, this place is very far from our residence, no need to say more. You all go and tidy up and empty the hut. From now on you don't need to look after this place. Just hand it over to Junior Brother Run and Junior Brother Bai. If you have anything to do, quickly tell me." Then he turned to Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Little brother, familiarize yourself with the environment first. I'll come back in a few days to talk to you in detail." Then he brought Qiu Weiqing down the peak. The disciples who were looking after the medicine fields were caught slacking off by Qin Fengxiao. They thought that they would be punished, but after hearing Qin Fengxiao's instructions, their faces were full of joy. Although the medicine fields were easy, they had to go up and down the peak every day. It was very tiring and they had long complained. Now that they were so happy that they didn't have to climb the mountain path anymore, they were very happy. After seeing Qin Fengxiao leave, they pulled Zhang Xiaohua and Bai Huan's sleeves and roughly walked around the medicine fields. They also told them all the things to take note of. Then they quickly went into the hut, packed up their things, and happily went down Tianmu Peak. Only Zhang Xiaohua was left standing under the sun with a faint smile on her face as she looked at the bare medicine fields. Bai Huan stood in front of the empty hut with a bitter face. No one knew what she was thinking. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua said, "Senior Brother Bai, if you don't want to stay on the peak, you can go back first. When I have time, I'll talk to Headmaster Qin." Bai Huan immediately waved her hand and said, No, I'm just not used to it. Junior Brother Run, stay here. I'll go and bring your bedding up." However, Zhang Xiaohua said, "No need. You can bring your things up first. I'll walk around. When I have time later, I'll take it myself." "All right then. Junior Brother Run, don't go too far. You can't go to the west side. If the consecrators of the pill department see you, they will inevitably punish you. I know. You can go about your business." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and went straight to the peak. Chapter 566. The peak of Tianmu Peak was a huge platform. There were many strange stones placed haphazardly on it. There were also a few huge ancient trees with their flourishing canopies covering most of the platform. Zhang Xiaohua came to the platform and spread out her divine sense. Seeing that there was no one around, she immediately jumped up and stood on top of the canopy. Tianmu Peak was surrounded by a sea of clouds. Only the peak of Tianmu Peak could be seen. It was like a small island in the middle of the sea. Faintly in the distance, there were a few dark shadows of islands. They must be the peaks of the other peaks. Jiega, a few clear cries could be heard. A few white cranes flew through the sea of clouds, stirring up some dust. They circled above the clouds a few times before diving back down and disappearing without a trace. In the east of the sky, a huge sun shone its golden light on the sea of clouds. The mountain wind blew, the sea of clouds rolled, and golden snakes danced wildly. Zhang Xiaohua was a little dazed at the sight. This must be a paradise. After being intoxicated for a while, Zhang Xiaohua sighed and thought to herself, "Although it is like a paradise, it is still a foreign place. It is not a place for me to stay. Moreover, the beautiful scenery is just a facade. The people's hearts are not what they used to be. I wonder where the paradise is." Then, without hesitation, she released her divine sense and jumped to the west. The west side was where the alchemists of the pill department lived. There were not many herbs planted there. Although the slope was not steep, all kinds of trees were thick and tall. There were also many herbs and weeds on the ground. It looked like they were not taken care of. While walking, she heard footsteps. Zhang Xiaohua looked left and right, then jumped onto a big tree and hid among the thick branches. After a while, two disciples walked past from the left. The disciples of the pill department were dressed in the same way as the disciples of the grass department. Zhang Xiaohua could not tell if they were disciples of the pill department. She heard the person on the left say, "We lost a lot in this bet. In order to get some points, we bet a lot of elixirs." Who would have thought that something that was guaranteed would go wrong in the end? That's right, I'm the same. Sai, forget it. Luckily, this junior brother from the grass division is a fool. He just came to Tianmu Peak and doesn't know anything. He still thinks that it's the same as outside, that herbs are valuable. Weren't many of the Rejuvenation Valley's disciples like this in the past? They try their best to collect herbs that they've never seen before, but in the end, when they want to trade for pills, no one will trade with them, right? It's just that this hothead made too big of a commotion. He actually won against all the disciples. No matter how much you win, isn't it all just grass? How can it be more practical than medicinal pills? What a pity. This kid's martial arts are not bad. His Qinggong is even better than the great King Kong. Forget it. You've been tricked. What? Had he been cheated? What do you mean, senior martial brother? You stupid brain, no wonder you keep losing. Think about it, who is the great King Kong? His lightness skill is second to none in our Tianmu Peak. Even if Headmaster Chen's martial arts is strong, he is no match for the great King Kong in terms of lightness skill. How could he lose to a hothead? I understand now. No wonder senior martial brother Lu said that the great guardian deity's expression didn't look right when he saw the final scene on Heaven Eye Peak. They must have made some secret deal. That's right. You only remembered it now. Then let's go find Elder Lei and ask him to uphold justice. Although he said this, his tone was weak. He didn't have the toughness of finding someone to uphold justice for him. Isn't Elder Lei in the alchemy room in front? Junior martial brother, you can go ahead. This Sai, it's just some medicinal pills. It's not like we haven't lost before. We can just win it back in the future. There's no need to offend the great King Kong. Junior martial brother, do you understand why I didn't look for Elder Lei? Furthermore, Elder Lei was also present that day. He saw it with his own eyes and admitted that the great King Kong had lost. If you look for him again, won't you be giving Elder Lei a hard time? I understand. In the future, this hothead still has to participate in the competition. We can just get it back from him. Oh, he collected a lot of useless medicinal herbs. How can he give them to the great King Kong? This isn't a problem for us to consider. Anyway, the future is long. Let's wait and see. Yes, that's right. Let's go quickly. Elder Su is waiting anxiously. He might scold us again. If we go early, we'll be scolded. If we go late, we'll also be scolded. Why should we go early? Sai, that's true. Why is this small bone congealing pill so difficult to refine? Elder Su has already failed so many times. Look at what you're saying. If it wasn't difficult to refine, how could this small bone congealing pill be worth so much money? The two disciples talked as they walked. They didn't stop. In the end, they had already walked far away. Looking at the direction they were heading, Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly. People always make guesses. They think that they're right, but they don't know that the simplest reason can be the correct reason. However, this is also good. It's better than letting others know all of a sudden. Elder Su. Small bone congealing pill. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua did not go down to the ground. Instead, he slid up the treetops like a wisp of smoke and followed the two from afar. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes suddenly caught sight of a small gourd on the side of their sleeves. What's this symbol? Is it the symbol of the pill department? Zhang Xiaohua was secretly surprised. After thinking about it carefully, she found that there seemed to be a grass-like symbol on the sleeves of Bai Huan and others. It was just that Zhang Xiaohua had only been here for a short time, so she didn't have too close contact with these disciples of Tianmu Peak. As soon as she came here, they were gambling and paying off debts. How could she notice it? The pill department should be in the shape of a round pill. How can it be a gourd? The two people whispered to each other as they walked. Along the path, they came to a cave. They looked at each other and walked to the entrance of the cave, saying in unison, "Elder Su, we're here." Then they heard a series of footsteps inside. Sure enough, it was one of the experts they saw in the gambling arena that day. As soon as Elder Su saw them, he scolded. "Didn't you two sleep last night? Why did you come so late? This old man has been waiting for a long time." This pill furnace is also hot and hot. This old man just asked you to be furnace boys for a few days. How can you be so lazy? The two disciples hurriedly bowed. Elder Su, please don't be angry. The top of Tianmu Peak is really high. Our lightness skills are limited, so we walked up step by step. There's no guarantee that we won't be delayed. Moreover, this time doesn't seem too late. You still dare to talk back? Quickly go in and help me sort out the medicinal herbs. When this furnace of pills is completed, I'll talk to Wu Dalong. Elder Su looked at the sky from the corner of his eyes. He seemed to know that he was in the wrong and was looking for a way out. The two disciples didn't dare to delay, and quickly slipped into the cave. Consecrated Elder Su walked slowly behind him. After the three of them entered the cave, Zhang Xiaohua revealed herself from behind a tree not far away. She looked at the cave and released her divine sense. After estimating the distance, she made a hand seal and burrowed into the ground. This was a very spacious cave. In the middle was a space the size of Rejuvenation Valley's pill room. Beside it was a small cave with a bed. It should be Elder Su's resting place. Zhang Xiaohua appeared in this small cave. She saw that this pill room was actually similar to Rejuvenation Valley Master Nie's pill room. Against the mountain wall, there was a groove with a huge pill furnace on it. At this moment, there was a greenish-yellow flame burning under the pill furnace. It seemed to be earth fire. Zhang Xiaohua carefully observed the pill furnace. Sure enough, there were palm-like things on both sides of the pill furnace. It was similar to Rejuvenation Valley's pill furnace. At this moment, Elder Su was already standing in front of the pill furnace. The two disciples squatted beside him and picked up some medicinal herbs. These medicinal herbs looked very fresh and should have been picked recently. Elder Su placed one hand on one side of the pill furnace and took the medicinal herbs with the other. He looked at them carefully and threw them into the pill furnace. Not long after, some medicinal fragrance wafted out from the pill furnace. After a while, more medicinal herbs were thrown into the furnace. Seeing Elder Su's ease, Zhang Xiaohua secretly nodded. This is the authentic martial way of refining pills. It's much better than my unorthodox way of fumbling around. However, Zhang Xiaohua didn't care about the martial way of refining pills, so she didn't have any intention of secretly learning. She looked around the pill room, made a hand seal, and escaped again. She floated up the tree and then floated down the mountain peak. The pill room on Tianmu Peak was also a typical martial way of refining pills. The pill furnace could also be controlled by internal energy. However, she didn't know if the method was the same as the enchanting finger. The pill room on Tianmu Peak also used earth fire. She didn't know how the earth fire was brought up from such a high peak. Of course, the incense cult was a great immortal sect with thousands of years of heritage. Their methods must be miraculous. This was just one of the simplest methods. After walking down for a while, her divine sense found that a cave appeared on the left side. There were flames lingering inside. So she turned around and went straight in. However, before she reached it, she heard a loud bang from the cave. Then, an old man with a face blackened by the explosion and straight gray hair escaped from the cave with unusual speed. Wasn't he Elder Feng, the one who asked Zhang Xiaohua for the Yuhuandan pill that day? Hearing the explosion, Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Her divine sense couldn't reach far, and couldn't see the situation around her. However, how could such a commotion not attract attention? She immediately made a hand seal, and went to the side of Elder Feng, who was hurriedly tidying up his clothes and removing the dust from his hair. She quietly hid behind a mountain rock. As expected, before old Consecrator Feng could finish packing up, old Consecrator Su, old Consecrator Lei, and the others rushed over. When they saw old Consecrator Feng in such a sorry state, they smiled and said, "Brother Feng, you failed again?" "Sai, yes, who knows what happened? I followed the instructions recorded in the book, and the steps seem to be correct. Why can't I refine the Yuhuandan pill? Even the small revitalizing pill keeps making mistakes." "What? Refining the pill until it exploded? And you actually made yourself like this? To be able to refine the pill to this extent? Elder Feng can be considered to be proud of yourself." Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but secretly admire Elder Feng. Chapter 567. Don't worry, old phone. This Yuhuandan pill is the consummate skill of an inner sect alchemist. Back then, when we were in the inner sect, we didn't manage to successfully refine it. Now it's probably impossible for us to refine it in one go. Let's slowly try. The other pills are also easy to deal with. If the refinement fails, then so be it. If this returning jade pill fails, then it will explode. Look at my beard. It will burn off sooner or later. It's a pity that the last time Wuzhou ruins took out the jade return pill, it was actually snatched away by Chen Fengxiao. Otherwise, we could have studied it properly. Sai, don't place your hopes on it. It's just a failed Yuhuandan pill. Even if it's the real Yuhuandan pill, haven't we seen it before? Why haven't we researched it yet? Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. Isn't it because we can't refine the Yuhuandan pill that we were exiled to this place? Didn't those old farts stay in the inner sect because they knew how to refine the Yuhuandan pill? Once I've researched it, I'll pass it on to all of you. We'll return in glory and let them worship us. Old Consecrator Lei smiled and said, Alright, I'll leave this glorious and difficult task to Brother Feng. You must take care of your body. Don't lose your beard before your ambition is realized. Ha ha ha. Old Consecrator Su also laughed. At this moment, the dozen or so pill department disciples at the foot of the mountain also heard the commotion and came over. Old Consecrator Lei and the others waved their hands and gave a simple explanation of the situation before letting them leave. After those disciples walked far away, Zhang Xiahua didn't delay any longer. She burrowed into the ground and followed them from afar. The further down the mountain they went, the more disciples they encountered. There were also more caves like the alchemy rooms from before. The dozen or so disciples walked towards different alchemy rooms. Zhang Xiahua didn't deliberately follow them. She only quietly hid behind a large rock and used her divine sense to observe the surrounding movements. The terrain in this area was flat. There were 7 or 8 caves in the surroundings. Disciples entered and exited each cave from time to time. Some were holding medicinal herbs in their hands, some were holding jade bottles in their hands, and very few were even holding jade boxes in their hands. However, seeing that these caves were somewhat foggy, Zhang Xiahua lost interest in going in to investigate. At this time, he wasn't studying Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy techniques. There was no reason for him to be interested in this alchemy technique that was even inferior to orthodox martial arts alchemy. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiahua burrowed into the ground and headed towards the top of the mountain. When she turned to the north side of the mountain, there was only a stretch of cliffs. There wasn't any flat area, and of course, there was no place for people to stay. Zhang Xiahua only poked her head out to take a look before returning to the east side. At this time, there was still no one in the cottage. Bai Huan shouldn't have returned yet. Zhang Xiahua headed towards the south again. As he walked, he suddenly saw a steep area in the southeast corner. It seemed to be a cave. When he approached it, it was indeed so. Zhang Xiahua was overjoyed. The reason why he went from west to north and then from north to east was because he wanted to find a place to stay. Although there was a cottage next to the medicinal field, it was okay if only Zhang Xiahua lived there. However, with Bai Huan, who was similar to monitoring Zhang Xiahua, it was no longer an ideal place to stay. And this cave in the southeast corner was exactly the place in his heart. The entrance of the cave wasn't big, and could only allow one person to enter. The inside of the cave was also quite big and very dry. At this time, the sun was shining in from afar, and it was very bright. Zhang Xiahua casually looked around inside and felt satisfied. Only then did he come out. In fact, he had lived in this cave for a long time when he was on a deserted island overseas in his early years. As long as he could sit cross-legged, he didn't have any other requirements. After coming out of the cave, Zhang Xiahua still looked towards the south side of the mountain. The south side of the mountain seemed to be more gentle. There weren't many medicinal fields near the top of the mountain. Even if there were, they were very small and couldn't be planted with many herbs. The further down he went, the more herbs were planted. Every medicinal field was very big and precious herbs were planted in some corners. Many disciples of the grass division with the grass embroidered on their sleeves were busy. The scene was similar to the mountainside of the east side of the mountain. Seeing this scene, Zhang Xiaohua shook his head. This wasn't a place he wanted to come often. However, he remembered that Headmaster Chen hadn't given him any clothes yet. So he turned and went back to the top of the mountain. When he came to the front of the cave, he looked down at the medicinal fields at the foot of the mountain. Zhang Xiaohua was a little puzzled. He didn't know what the elders of the Fragrance Division had arranged. Only the west side of Tianmu Peak had many pill rooms for refining pills. The other 3 sides had very few caves. Just as he was thinking, he heard someone shout from afar. Junior Brother Ren, Junior Brother Ren? Where are you? Wasn't that Bai Huan's shout? Zhang Xiaohua made a sound of acknowledgement and turned around the corner, walking towards the medicinal fields in the east. Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's reply, Bai Huan quickly walked over. When she saw Zhang Xiaohua's figure, she sighed in relief and asked, "Where did Junior Brother Ren go? The south side of the mountain is also our grass division's territory." "Did you go there?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and nodded. "Yes, when I was in Rejuvenation Valley, I didn't see so many medicinal fields. Now that I see it, I'm a little surprised." "Haha, Junior Brother Ren is new here. He will know in the future that our Tianmu Peak doesn't have many medicinal fields. The north side is steep and there used to be some herbs, but they have all been picked. It's not easy to grow them now. The west side is still the Pill Division's territory, and there aren't many varieties. Only the east and south sides can be grown. The other peaks, such as Three Reeds Peak, Baiwa Peak and Shirxin Peak, are full of medicinal plants. That's spectacular. Oh, by the way, Shirxin Peak has been taken away by the Misty Hall. The head of the Misty Hall has given the mountain to us. Although the mountain has only been in our possession for a few years, the mountain has already been planned. Together with the medicinal plants planted on the mountain, it can be compared to Shirxin Peak." Then she smacked her lips a few times and said, "Tisk tsk, Shirxin Peak is a good mountain. It used to be the best mountain in our Pill Division. If not for the head of the Misty Hall's strict order, the Hall Master would not be willing to give it away." Misty Hall? Zhang Xiaohua was ecstatic. He had been in the Fragrance Division for a few days, and had been looking for a chance to ask about the Misty School. But he didn't have the chance and didn't dare to lead the topic to the Misty School. Now that Bai Huan mentioned it, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Misty Hall? What does it do? Does it dig jade like Shiyu Hall?" "Haha, you don't know about this, do you?" Bai Huan said proudly. "You're also from the Rejuvenation Valley. Have you heard of the Misty School?" "Misty School?" Zhang Xiaohua had a strange expression and frowned. "I think I've heard of it, but I also don't think I've heard of it. You know, I've always been in the Rejuvenation Valley and don't go out much." Bai Huan was a little disappointed and said with disappointment, "Junior Brother Ren, your martial arts are so strong, but why don't you know anything about the pugilistic world? Don't you know the names of the pugilistic world's major sects like the Dalan Temple, Fragrance Division, Righteous Alliance, Misty School, Fallen Star Alliance, and so on?" "Oh, speaking of this, of course I know. Jade Foundation Alliance, Whale Gang. I know about them too." "You're right, but do you know who is the most powerful other than the Dalan Temple, Righteous Alliance, and Fragrance Division?" "I don't know. Isn't it our Jade Foundation Alliance?" "Guess again?" It was as if Zhang Xiaohua was a 5 or 6-year-old child who needed his guidance. Zhang Xiaohua was helpless and said with his mouth agape, "Could it be the Misty School that Senior Brother Bai mentioned?" "Bingo." Bai Huan clapped and laughed. "That's right, this Misty School is the most powerful sect in the pugilistic world other than the Dalan Temple, Righteous Alliance, and us." "But do you know what happened to this Misty School?" Zhang Xiaohua frowned. "This how would I know?" Then he pretended to be enlightened and said, "Could it be, this Misty School has something to do with our ethereal hall?" Bai Huan clapped again and said with a smile, "That's right. Our ethereal hall is the Misty School that was destroyed by us 4 years ago. Their disciples were brought back by our leader, and they established our ethereal hall." "The Misty School was destroyed by our Fragrance Division?" Zhang Xiaohua was a little surprised. Why was this different from what Chu Yunfei, the Misty School's disciple, said? And it was also different from the rumors in the pugilistic world. Bai Huan said proudly, "Of course. We, the Cult of Fragrance, destroyed the Misty sect with just a little finger, and brought back the remaining disciples. But our fragrance division rarely gets involved in the pugilistic world. Why did this misty school provoke us? Why did we destroy them all at once? Also, senior brother Bai, I want to ask, since Shirshine Peak is the best peak in the pugilistic world, why was it forcefully taken away and given to the ethereal hall? Zhang Xiaohua laughed in her heart, but asked with a puzzled expression. Maybe the Misty sect has been doing whatever they want in the Jianghu, and offended the disciples of our fragrant cult outside. Although our fragrant cult can't enter and leave the Jianghu as we please, there are still many disciples outside the Jianghu. I guess it's them who have a grudge with the Misty sect. They dare to offend our fragrant cult? Are they tired of living? If it weren't for this damn passage, the whole pugilistic world would have been ours long ago. Haha, if a small and insignificant disciple in the pugilistic world thinks like this, I don't know what the outer and inner disciples are thinking. They are really frogs in a well. Oh, it's really hard to say. The fragrance division has passed down the cultivation method of immortality for thousands of years. If there is someone like me, wouldn't it be? But the chi of heaven and earth in the fragrance division is thin, so it's unlikely. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while, and felt a little uneasy. She suddenly asked, "Oh right, senior brother Bai, you haven't answered my question. Shirshine Peak is such a good peak. Why was it given to the ethereal hall? Why don't you just let them come to Tianmu Peak?" Zhang Xiaohua had been inquiring about her second brother, so naturally she couldn't talk about the ethereal hall. Alas, the pugilistic world is cruel. What she saw now was only the peaceful side. Chapter 568. Well, Bai Huan really couldn't justify himself. He was just a low-level disciple. Everything he knew was hearsay. Now he was using it to fool Zhang Xiaohua and show off his profound knowledge. How could he know such a profound question? He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, pacification, junior brother Ren doesn't know about it. Pacification? If you don't understand, please enlighten me. Zhang Xiaohua was eager for him to say more. Of course, she would take advantage of the situation. Bai Huan pinched the beard under his chin with his hand and said confidently, "Although the Misty School is worthless in our fragrance cult, after all, it is a super sect in Jianghu. Think about it. They were easily destroyed by us and sent here from afar. They are no longer as glorious as they used to be. Do you think they can feel balanced? Oh, I also heard that many people in their sect were seriously injured. Their bones were crushed by the old consecrata, and they were paralyzed on the bed, unable to move at will. And there were also many first-class masters in Jianghu, but they were also crippled by our cult master's finger. They were so weak that they could not even truss a chicken. How could they not be resentful?" Then he looked around and said mysteriously, "You don't know that several halls of our fragrance cult are not on good terms with the Misty Hall. The disciples of the Misty Hall are not good at martial arts, but they are united. They often fight with some outer disciples. Moreover, in order to restrict them, the disciples of our Pill Repository Hall are forbidden to contact the disciples of the Misty Hall for fear that some elixirs will flow into the Misty Hall." Then he said, "Oh, I digress. Let's continue to talk about pacification. Our hierarch is a man of great talent and bold vision. He has long considered the resentment of the disciples of the Misty Hall. Therefore, he used both kindness and coercion to allocate the best Shirshine Peak to them, and let them live a good life there. It is said that there are many inner disciples around the Shirshine Peak to guard and prevent people from entering or leaving the Shirshine Peak at will. Hey, since you can't enter Shirshine Peak at will, how can you still have a conflict with the people of Misty Hall? Sai, you don't understand. Junior brother Ren, although Shirshine Peak is rich in resources and has the best medicinal herbs, it's impossible for them to seclude themselves. There are many things that they have to communicate with other halls. For example, if they don't give us their medicinal herbs, can they refine their own pills? Oh, I heard that the Misty Hall also has some alchemists, but compared with our Pill Tower Hall, they are far inferior." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "I understand now. The disciples of the sect must have seen that the Misty Hall is a newcomer and deliberately wanted to bully them. It's just like the first night I came to Tianmu Peak." This Bai Huan was a little embarrassed. On that day he had asked Zhang Xiaohua openly and secretly for filial piety. Now that he saw that Zhang Xiaohua could even kill the 10 great King Kongs, how could he dare to mention what happened that day? Now that Zhang Xiaohua mentioned it, although she didn't mention his attitude towards Zhang Xiaohua, he was still extremely embarrassed. Ahem, Bai Huan coughed and said. How can the Misty Hall be compared with Junior Brother Ren? Junior Brother Ren is a direct disciple of our fragrance cult. He came in openly from Rejuvenation Valley, but they all changed their minds halfway. No one can guarantee that they will betray the fragrance cult tomorrow. Who will give them face? Moreover, Junior Brother Ren is a genius. Although he is young, his martial arts are superb. Even the great King Kongs have to give way to him. The Misty Hall is just a disabled hall. Who will care about their life and death? Oh! Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but frown, and a trace of sternness flashed through her eyes. Since even a disciple like Bai Huan said so, the situation of the Misty School in the fragrance cult could be seen from this. By the way, Senior Brother Bai, I have only been to the fragrance cult for a short time. First I came to Baiyue Peak, and then came to our Tianmu Peak. May I know where Shixing Peak is? Bai Huan didn't suspect anything and pointed to a small black spot under the sun in the east, saying, Look, isn't it over there? Zhang Xiaohua looked over and couldn't see clearly. She couldn't help but ask in surprise. Why is it so far? I remember that it only takes half a day to go from Baiyue Peak to Tianmu Peak. You don't know this. Bai Huan once again put on the appearance of a good teacher, pointing to the dozens of clear or unclear black spots in the sea of clouds and said, The 19 peaks of our fragrant religion. I heard that there is some kind of formation. With the Lingxiang Peak as the center, the other 18 peaks are scattered around it in picturesque disorder. But the surroundings are not circular, like the Big Dipper. And our Tianmu Peak and Baiyue Peak are the furthest away from the Shixing Peak, almost 3 or 4 days of travel. So far, Zhang Xiaohua was a little disappointed. This Bai Huan must have been sent by Qin Fengxiao to spy on her. If it was like Baiyue Peak, with half a day of travel, she could go back and forth in a day. Perhaps she could find a reason to go. But Shixing Peak actually took 3 or 4 days. Wouldn't it take her 7 or 8 days to go back and forth? It was hard to give any reason. Alas, I'd better stay at Tianmu Peak for now. I'll wait until I'm familiar with Qin Fengxiao, and he is no longer wary of me. Zhang Xiaohua could only comfort herself like this. She directly ignored the inner disciples guarding Shixing Peak. When Zhang Xiaohua first entered the fragrant religion, he was extremely worried about his second brother's safety. He wanted to find the Misty Hall as soon as possible, so that he could be at ease when he saw his second brother with his own eyes. However, after what he had seen and heard in the fragrant religion for the past few days, he found that the martial arts of the fragrant religion disciples were mediocre, and they did not have much contact with the outside world. The disciples of the Pill Repository Hall were all very ordinary, and they were far inferior to the disciples of the Misty sect that he had met before. Even Ye Xiao'er might not be able to compare with them. Therefore, he was not worried about his second brother's safety. If his second brother could reach the fragrant religion safely, then he would be staying at the Shixing Peak. However, if something were to happen to him, then even if he went to the Shixing Peak now, he might not be able to see his second brother alive. At this time, she heard Bai Huan say mysteriously, Junior Brother Ren, in fact, there is a story about these 19 mountains. I don't know if you have heard of it. Story? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. He smiled and said, Of course I haven't heard of it. When I entered the fragrance cult, it was Baiyue Peak and Tianmu Peak. The first disciple I really met was Senior Brother Bai. No one has confided in me as much as Senior Brother Bai. How could I know? Bai Huan was very comfortable with this so-called flattery. She smiled and said, There are many stories in our fragrance cult. For example, these 19 mountains. I heard that only Lingering Fragrance Peak was on the ground, and the other 18 mountains were suspended in the air. Ah! Zhang Xiaohua opened his mouth wide and looked at the islands in the sea of clouds in disbelief. How is that possible? Then she looked at Tianmu Peak under her feet and stamped her feet. Tianmu Peak is also suspended in the air? Yes. Baiyue Peak, Shixing Peak, and the others are all suspended in the air. Bai Huan said firmly. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was a little hesitant. The fragrance cult was a great immortal sect, so it was not strange for them to have shocking stories. Zhang Xiaohua herself was an immortal cultivator, so she should be able to accept it. But to think that these mountains were suspended in the air and formed a complete formation to protect lingering fragrance peak was really beyond Zhang Xiaohua's understanding. There was no such description in the jade slip. However, Zhang Xiaohua's mind immediately lit up. Other formations aside, the rabbit talisman and rooster talisman in her mud pill palace, as well as the golden ball they formed, were not on the same plane. If someone really had great magic power, they might be able to refine these talismans one by one to form a complete formation. Or if they refined each mountain into a talisman, perhaps they really could form a suspended formation. But how great would their magic power be? Perhaps only the legendary foundation establishment cultivators could do it. Sigh, poor Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua had no one to teach him. He had only heard of the foundation establishment stage. He simply regarded the foundation establishment stage as the end of his cultivation. Perhaps only when he reached that stage would he realize that there was always someone better than him. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's stunned and incredulous expression, Bai Huan was very satisfied. She smiled and said, "However, this is just an old story. You can't take it seriously. Anyway, I still don't believe it. If you want it to be suspended in the air, what if the seniors of the fragrance cult slip and fall from the mountain? Wouldn't they be smashed into a meat patty? Moreover, they just want to drop by. What should we do? We can't use a rope to get to the ground first, and then climb a rope to another mountain." Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was sweating profusely. She was not afraid of being uncultured, but she was afraid of talking nonsense. Bai Huan really dared to imagine that if the people of the Way of Immortality didn't have the means to fix the things on the mountain, as long as the mountain was suspended in the air, all the stones and plants on the mountain would tumble down, falling to death. She really dared to imagine. If the Way of Immortality hadn't been destroyed, the people of the Way of Immortality must have some kind of floating technique. How could they fall down so easily? Bai Huan proudly expressed her opinion and stunned Zhang Xiaohua. She said, "By the way, junior brother Ren, why did you come down? Let's go. I've brought up your bedding and other things. Let's clean up the hut first. You don't know, these people are really lazy. Although they don't stay every night, you should still clean up the peels and paper scraps. It's piled up like a mountain inside. If I had known, I would have let them clean up first." Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Senior brother Bai, can you carry your bedding and mine?" "Of course I can't, but I can ask the other senior brothers to help me." "Then why don't you just ask them to help clean up?" Cough cough. "Headmaster Chen isn't here. How would I dare to order them around? They're even using junior brother Ren's name to deliver the bedding." Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Chapter 569. Of course, cleaning the room was not a difficult task. However, Zhang Xiaohua was unwilling to live there. Why should he do something useless? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "In that case, I can only clean it myself. Senior brother Bai, it's better for you to clean it yourself. I don't live in that hut anyway." Bai Huan did not hear Zhang Xiaohua's words clearly and said, "Okay, I know that junior brother Ren's hands are used for gambling. As for cleaning, let's..." "And what? If junior brother Ren doesn't live in the hut, where will you live?" Then she asked, "Is it because you think it's inconvenient for me to live here? Why don't I tell Headmaster Chen that I'll live in the original place?" Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly. "I asked you to come here to watch over me. If you leave, how can Headmaster Chen do it?" She said, "Don't, senior brother Bai. I'm just not used to living with others. Look, there's a cave on the cliff. I've already checked it out. It's very suitable and can accommodate one person. I'll live there." "Ah, how can that be? Junior brother Ren, aren't you despising me by doing this?" Seeing that Bai Huan was about to make a fuss again, Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "Senior brother Bai, do you think Headmaster Chen will let you go back if you tell him? I'm afraid he'll let you." As she spoke, she pointed at the cliff in the distance. Bai Huan hesitated. Needless to say, As long as Zhang Xiaohua said that she did not want to live with Bai Huan, Qin Fengxiao would not let Bai Huan go down the mountain. She could not escape the fate of living in a cave. Bai Huan was speechless. Although the disciples of Tianmu Peak were not pampered, living in a cave? Thinking about it, it was a little inconceivable. Then Bai Huan looked at Zhang Xiaohua with a strange expression. What was this person trying to do? She did not want to live in a good house, but wanted to live in a remote bamboo grove. Thinking of the shadow of the bamboo grove, Bai Huan shuddered. There were good houses on the peak, but she did not want to live in a cave. Why was she so unlucky? Why didn't she slack off that day? Why did he have to meet such a person? Zhang Xiaohua's words were very true. Before he came, Qiu Weicheng had told him clearly to keep an eye on Zhang Xiaohua. As for why and how, Qiu Weicheng did not say anything. He only patted Qiu Weicheng's shoulder and said, "The Qiao clan trusts you." Of course, he had to tell Qin Fengxiao that Zhang Xiaohua was living in a cave, but not now. It would not be too late to tell Qin Fengxiao when he needed to report the situation 2 days later. That was because Zhang Xiaohua was already living in a cave. How could head boss Chen invite him out of the cave? It seems like this Zhang Xiaohua doesn't listen to boss Chen's words. After thinking about it, Bai Huan said politely, "Even if we have to live in the cave, I will live there. How can I let junior brother Ren live there?" Zhang Xiaohua knew that he was being polite. She smiled and said, "Senior brother Bai, you don't have to say any more. Head boss Chen is not here. I won't accept your kindness. If you want, you can go ahead. I won't stop you." Bai Huan smiled and said, "Junior brother Ren is indeed a straightforward person. I will go and get your bedding now." After saying that, he quickly ran away and went to the hut. He did not mention cleaning the hut anymore. Bai Huan accompanied Zhang Xiaohua to the slightly hidden small cave in the southeast corner. She couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Junior brother Ren, I've come to the top of heaven I peak many times, but I've never seen this cave before. It's just that it's a little close to the cliff. If you sleepwalk at night, won't it be easy to fall and get injured?" Looking at the cave entrance that was a few feet away from the cliff, Zhang Xiaohua did not know what to say. Not to mention that she practiced the Carefree Heart Sutra at night and would not come out of the cave. Even if she came out, she would not turn around and walk towards the cliff. This cave is actually very dry? I was worried that junior brother Ren's joints would hurt from sleeping. Bai Huan muttered as he put the bedding in the cave. He looked around and said, "This cave is a little similar to the alchemy room of the pill division in the west, but it is much smaller." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said, "Senior brother Bai has been to the alchemy room of the pill division in the west? Didn't you say that you are not allowed to go there?" Bai Huan smiled and said, "I occasionally get lost and come here. You can't say anything about me, right? Besides, you sent some herbs over, and let me take a look inside. It is only right." Zhang Xiaohua wanted to ask if the disciples of the grass division had used the alchemy room of the pill division in the past. However, disciples like Bai Huan might not know. Moreover, Qin Fengxiao must be more anxious than her. Perhaps there would be some news in a few days. However, what kind of elixir should she refine by then? Alas, forget it. Don't think about it. Let's see when the time comes. Coming out of the cave, Bai Huan went to tidy up his hut. Zhang Xiaohua went to the bare herb field, squatted down, and grabbed a handful of soil from the field. The soil was very soft. With Zhang Xiaohua's insight as a disciple of the School of Agriculture, she knew that it was of good quality. If grain was planted, it would certainly grow vigorously. This situation was no different from the herb field in the Huanxi Mountain Villa. If she guessed correctly, it should be the reason for the lack of qi of heaven and earth. However, according to the qi of heaven and earth gathered when she attracted the thunder, it seemed that it was denser than now. No wonder the herbs did not sprout. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua was a little puzzled. The Aroma sect was a large sect with immortal inheritance. How could they not know about qi of heaven and earth? Since they knew that the qi of heaven and earth was scarce, why did they still do useless work here? By the way, the herbs in the Huanxi Mountain Villa have sprouted. But what happened later? The qi of heaven and earth is still not enough to support the growth of those herbs. Maybe they can be transplanted to the Rejuvenation Valley, or the aroma sect? Of course, when Zhang Xiaohua explored the Righteous Alliance, she went to the Huanxi mountain villa when she came out. But it was at night and there was heavy snow, so she did not pay attention to the herb field. Now, she naturally did not have any impression of it. I really have a predestined relationship with this herb that does not sprout. Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly. But if this is the herb of the Huanxi mountain villa, I will find a way. Well, since the well water in the Guozhuang house has qi of heaven and earth, the water soaked in primordial stone must also have qi of heaven and earth. If I water it, maybe it will sprout. But, does it have anything to do with me whether the herbs of the aroma sect will sprout? Primordial stone is the proof of cultivation. Every time I use it, it will be less. I must not waste it. However, as for whether the water soaked in primordial stone could make the herb speak, Zhang Xiaohua was still willing to try. Of course, it was only an attempt. She did not have the intention to promote it on a large scale. The herb field was just taken over from the other disciples today. Although those people were a little lazy, they cleaned it up very well. There was nothing to do today, so Zhang Xiaohua only took a rough look and slowly walked back to the cave. It was noon. The sun shone down from the sky in the south, illuminating the cave entrance. Zhang Xiaohua took out the praying mat from her purse and sat cross-legged under the sun. Then, she took out the sword manual that she found in the scabbard of the jade water sword. Time was limited that night, so he did not look at it carefully. He only roughly looked through the 81 sword moves. He felt that it was a little strange and inappropriate. Since there was nothing to do today, it was the best time to comprehend it. Zhang Xiaohua had only seen fist manuals before, so he was a little unfamiliar with sword manuals. He first memorized the diagram of the first move and the flow of inner energy. Then he took out the jade water sword and stood up from the ground. According to his thoughts, he executed the sword moves according to the sword moves. But with inner energy he could execute the sword moves, but he always felt that they were not coordinated. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and sat down with his sword. He opened the sword manual again and continued to read. He memorized sword moves one by one and simulated them in his mind. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua seemed to have returned to the time when he first learned the Arhut fist at Huanxi Mountain Villa. In his mind, a small figure holding a long sword was executed according to the records in the sword manual. The sun gradually moved to the west, and Zhang Xiaohua had already memorized most of the sword techniques. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua, who had always had an indifferent expression, frowned, and then a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. His two hands naturally picked up the sword manual on his knees and brought it close to his eyes to look at it carefully. After looking at it for a while, the corners of Zhang Xiaohua's mouth seemed to reveal a smile. He muttered to himself in a low voice, "I was wondering why this sword manual looked a little awkward. Every move was a little inappropriate. It was as if the links between the moves were not smooth, and there were hundreds of flaws. So this set of sword moves is not a simple martial arts sword move, but a change of the immortal sword moves. If not for the 41st to 46th moves being extremely similar to the sword moves that Elder Yu taught me, I would not have been able to tell. If that's the case, this sword manual cannot be looked at so simply. The flow of internal energy and the long sword in his hand may have been modified by a martial arts senior in the future. Look carefully at the angles of each set of 9 moves and the undrawn trajectories." As soon as he finished speaking, he memorized the remaining sword moves by heart, and then he closed his eyes and pondered. He divided the 81 sword moves he saw into 9 groups of 9, and he carefully comprehended the trajectories and connections within them. After a long time, Zhang Xiaohua did not open his eyes. He only reached into his bosom and took out Chasing Dream. Releasing his divine sense, he saw Chasing Dream draw a beautiful arc in front of his eyes. It followed a somewhat obscure new trajectory and stabbed out diagonally. Then, with a strange flip, it turned in another direction. After a long time, Chasing Dream flew crookedly back into Zhang Xiaohua's hands. Zhang Xiaohua opened his eyes and nodded gently, although this set of flying sword moves was still unfamiliar, since it was his first time practicing it. There were also many flaws in it. However, it proved that this was indeed a set of flying sword moves for the immortal Tao, and not an ordinary set of sword moves for the martial Tao. Perhaps this improved sword move was incomparably powerful, but Zhang Xiaohua still hoped to be able to use Chasing Dream as a flying sword. That was what Qi practitioners of the immortal Tao should be capable of. However, the sword manual did not state the name of this set of sword moves, nor did she know the origins of this set of sword moves. This made Zhang Xiaohua feel a little troubled. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua stood up again and put the sword manual away. He stood at the entrance of the cave with his hands behind his back. Looking at the boundless sea of clouds, he thought to himself, this set of sword moves was comprehended at the peak of Tianmu Peak. If it's named after this, it will be resounding. Chapter 570. However, Zhang Xiaohua stood at the entrance of the cave for a long time and looked at the sea of clouds. She couldn't think of a single word, so she could only laugh at herself. It seems that I have to learn more from young master Li Jinfeng when I have time. His ability to speak eloquently is still very interesting. Sigh, there's no other way. Nameless swordsmanship it is then. Who asked your master to not write the name of the swordsmanship? Oh, that's wrong. This swordsmanship is already different from the swordsmanship manual. There's no human form, only Chasing Dream weaves endless killing intent in the air. Oh right, this swordsmanship is strange. The small sword moves in the air, and often stabs out from unbelievable angles. Even that mysterious old man back then couldn't figure out where this swordsmanship goes. Oh right, why don't we call it weaving dreams? It's like weaving endless nightmares. Hee, since only I know it, I'll just call it that. This weaving dream swordsmanship was a flying sword technique that a martial arts master of some generation had obtained from the immortal Tao. It was much stronger than the few incomplete moves of Elder Yu's swordsmanship. Although Zhang Xiaohua couldn't execute it smoothly, the simulation in her mind was like a silkworm spitting out silk. The entire flying sword surrounded the opponent so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Even if she had to face that mysterious old man with the bronze mask in the underground hall again, Zhang Xiaohua was confident that he wouldn't be able to catch the Chasing Dream sword again. It was already late, and Zhang Xiaohua didn't plan to practice the swordsmanship anymore. This thing needed to be fists and mouth to be practiced. Practice makes perfect, so she wasn't in a hurry. She spent the entire afternoon in the cave, but Bai Huan didn't come to disturb her. Zhang Xiaohua needed to go out to meet her. Sure enough, when Zhang Xiaohua walked to the ridge of the field, Bai Huan ran over from the medicinal field and asked with concern, "Junior brother Ren, why didn't I see you for the entire afternoon? Are you unwell?" Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Bai Huan must have been scratching his ears and cheeks all afternoon, wanting to see if she was in the cave. So she smiled and said, "Senior brother Bai, don't worry. I am lazy and like to be alone. It doesn't matter if I stay here for a day or half a day. You see, there is not much work on the top of the mountain. We can finish it easily. You can also do more things you like, right?" Bai Huan thought to herself, of course. Who doesn't know this? But the problem is that other than working, I have to keep an eye on you. Hee, if you just stay in the cave, it's also suitable. I don't need to follow you around. So Bai Huan smiled and said, "Junior brother Ren is right. You can stay in the cave. I know that you martial artists like to be quiet. If you can cultivate your internal strength, I will definitely not disturb you. There is not much work on the top of the mountain. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, just practice your martial arts." Then she whispered, "However, junior brother Ren, we are fated. When you first came to Tianmu Peak, I was the one who received you. Now we are working together. The next time you fight, you must tell me the order of your appearance. It's best if you tell me which King Kong you are most confident in defeating, hee. Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly. "I see. Looks like this guy. Oh no, I guess all the disciples of the grass sect have this kind of plan." After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua whispered into his ear, "Martial arts should not be spread to outsiders. Senior brother Bai, let me tell you something. Out of the 10 King Kong, only the first 3 are not very confident. The rest are not a problem. The next time you fight, you can bet without worry. Oh right. Remember, when you bet my share as well. If you win, I will bet my share." As soon as she said this, Bai Huan beamed and waved her hand, saying, "Junior brother Ren, what are you talking about? How can I let it go like this? In the future, whatever I win will be yours. You don't have to give me any elixirs. Just divide it equally. If you lose, it will be mine too." Seeing Bai Huan gritting her teeth at the end, Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly and said, "Forget it. It should still be some time before the next fight. When Headmaster Chen comes to find me, we can talk about this again. I will give you the elixirs to bet then." Then she said, "Senior brother Bai, this medicine field needs to be watered. Where is the spring?" Bai Huan pointed at a place below and said, "It's not far over there. However, junior brother, you don't have to go. I have already watered the medicine field." "You have already watered it? There are so many medicine fields?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. "Of course not. How can I water so many medicine fields in half a day?" Bai Huan shook her head and said, "These medicine fields don't need to be watered every day. You just need to water one piece a day according to the order. I have already asked the previous senior brothers this morning. According to their habits, they only watered the left piece." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and asked, "Are there extra barrels?" "Yes." Bai Huan was stunned and pointed to the side of the hut and said, "There are more than a dozen barrels there, enough for 7 or 8 people. 4 of us are enough." "Well, okay, I will go to the spring to take a look." After that, Zhang Xiaohua walked to the side of the hut and took a wooden barrel. Bai Huan smiled apologetically and said, "I will accompany junior brother." "Don't." Zhang Xiaohua immediately shook her head and said, "Senior brother, you should do something else. I will go and take a look, and then I will come back." After that, without waiting for Bai Huan's reply, she lifted her leg and left. Bai Huan knew that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want him to follow, so he looked up and didn't follow. Zhang Xiaohua walked for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Sure enough, he found a pool of spring water in a low-lying place. The spring water flowed out from the stone wall, forming a small pool. Zhang Xiaohua scanned it with his divine sense and didn't find anything unusual. He fetched a bucket of spring water and returned. Although Bai Huan didn't follow, her eyes kept glancing in that direction. It wasn't until she saw Zhang Xiaohua's figure that she breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Xiaohua carried the wooden barrel back to the cave. She took out a prenatal stone from her arms and threw it into the barrel. Then she threw the barrel aside and ignored it. Today she had learned the dream-weaving swordsmanship, which was her biggest gain. It was still early, so Zhang Xiaohua sat cross-legged and finished her homework of comprehending the heavenly Tao. Unknowingly, it was already late. The moon was bright and the stars were few. The entire Tianmu Peak was immersed in darkness. In the hut next to the herb field, there was light at first, but after a long time, it went out. Not long after, there was a slight snoring sound. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared from a corner outside the hut. He looked around and seemed to be listening. Then he suddenly disappeared. Just like how he appeared just now, if Bai Huan saw him now, she would exclaim that she had seen a ghost. This figure was Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua saw that it was late and there was still some time before midnight, so she used Earth Escape and went to the Dan department on the west side of Tianmu Peak. During the day, the Dan department's alchemy room was bustling with people. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have a chance to get close to it. This night was a good time. The west side of Tianmu Peak was different from the other 3 sides. When Zhang Xiaohua came out of the ground, she saw dots of light. She went to the nearest one and saw that it was where the alchemy room was. Inside, Elder Su was refining pills. There were also several disciples waiting by the side. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua didn't stop. She went down some distance. The alchemy rooms used by the ordinary disciples were all lit up. They were either refining pills or being guarded. It seemed that they didn't rest at night. Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. The Dan department's disciples were guarding these alchemy rooms so closely. How could she use these alchemy rooms to refine pills? It wasn't that her alchemy furnace couldn't refine pills, but it was beyond her ability to refine things like meridian-nourishing pills. Perhaps, she could only wait for the result of the discussion between Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu. After thinking, Zhang Xiaohua didn't stay any longer. She made a gesture and went underground, heading straight for the cave. But just as she was about to reach the cave, there was nothing under her feet. She actually landed in a spacious area. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Without waiting for her feet to touch the ground, she rolled and hid in a corner. She reached out and took out Zhu Meng, who was still in her arms. He was really frightened by the cave with the black qi under the mountain stream. Zhang Xiaohua's feet touched the ground. She held Zhu Meng in her hands and looked carefully. But this place was pitch black. She couldn't see anything. Also, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to release her divine sense. She just stood there quietly, on guard for a long time. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua coughed and asked, "Is anyone here?" No one answered. Her voice reverberated in the cave. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua's brows jumped. She remembered that she still had a few luminous pearls in her money pouch. She reached out and took one out. Once that luminous pearl was taken out, it immediately emitted a weak light. Using the light, Zhang Xiaohua sized up this strange place. Looking at it didn't matter. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. Soon after, she released her divine sense. She carefully and boldly looked through the cave that was several tens of feet wide. Then, she took out the remaining luminous pearls in her money pouch and placed them in different places in the cave. In an instant, the entire cave was lit up. Why do you think Zhang Xiaohua was so happy? This was a rather large alchemy room. It was just that there weren't any exits around this alchemy room. There were only a few small holes in the southeast for ventilation. Under the light of the luminous pearl, Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at this alchemy room. The layout of this alchemy room was different from the ones she had seen before. In the Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy room, and the alchemy room that she saw Elder Su in the morning, the alchemy room's alchemy furnace was placed against the mountain wall above the earth fire. However, the alchemy room's alchemy furnace was placed right in the middle. The strangest thing was that this alchemy furnace placed right in the middle was incomparably huge. It was bigger than all the alchemy furnaces that Zhang Xiaohua had seen before. There were actually 8 legs at the bottom of the alchemy furnace. In contrast, the sides of this alchemy furnace actually had 8 round windows that looked like they were used to place medicine. This is an alchemy furnace? Zhang Xiaohua walked closer and used her hand to touch the alchemy furnace that was taller than her by a head. Then, she used her hand to touch the side windows of the alchemy furnace. Then she used her divine sense to explore it. Sure enough, once her divine sense touched the alchemy furnace, it was immediately bounced back by the restrictions on the alchemy furnace, and could not enter it. Zhang Xiaohua was not in a hurry. She made a hand seal, and hit the alchemy furnace. After the hand seal hit the alchemy furnace, there was only a slight roar. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed, and continued to hit the alchemy furnace with the subsequent hand seals. After a while, there was a crisp sound. The alchemy furnace's restriction was actually broken. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense was no longer obstructed and easily penetrated into the alchemy furnace. The alchemy furnace was the same as the alchemy furnace from before. The alchemy furnace's refining method was engraved on it. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept over it, and the name of the alchemy furnace immediately appeared in her mind. 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. Chapter 571. 8 trigrams purple gold furnace? Zhang Xiaohua frowned. What an arrogant name. Although he didn't know what 8 trigrams meant, the name was really pleasant to hear. In his mind, there was also the method to refine this pill furnace. Zhang Xiaohua roughly looked through it, and his tightly knitted brows quietly relaxed. To use this pill furnace, he must first refine it. This was the method used to refine high-level magic tools in the Refining the World. Needless to say, this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace must be an extremely good item. I've picked up a treasure. I've picked up a treasure. Zhang Xiaohua was so happy that he almost jumped up. He was about to use the technique to refine the pill furnace, but the time was already late. The refining couldn't be completed in a short period of time. Zhang Xiaohua suppressed his surprise, steadied his mind, and was about to escape the cave. But when he used his divine sense to explore, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The corner of the pill room was about 10 zhang outside. Wasn't it the location of his cave? However, it was blocked by mud and other things. If Zhang Xiaohua accidentally escaped, no one would know that there was a huge pill room about 10 zhang inside the cave. Returning to the cave, Zhang Xiaohua calmed his mind. He took out the primeval stones from his chest, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate at night. Early in the morning, after practicing the Big Dipper fist, Zhang Xiaohua didn't cultivate anymore. He picked up the wooden bucket next to the hut and fetched water from the spring. Only when the huge water jar was filled did he stop. Then he picked up the hoe and was about to weed the field. At this time his heart was moved. Could it be that the medicine boy of the immortal Tao was like him, walking step by step in the medicine field, and using a hoe to weed? Thinking about it, it was impossible. But how could it be done? Zhang Xiaohua rubbed his chin with his hand, carefully recalling the contents of the 100 Herbs Compendium and other jade slips. There didn't seem to be any records. Alas, he could only hoe the field at noon. Zhang Xiaohua lifted his leg, and was about to step into the field, but suddenly he thought of something. He should be able to save the process of bending down to weed. Looking at the hoe in his hand, he couldn't drive it with his spiritual sense. Should he use Chasing Dream? How shameful, using a flying sword to get rid of weeds. Immortal Tao seniors would laugh themselves to death. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly cried out. She formed a seal with her hand, and with a wave of her right hand, a weed was pulled out from the ground. Then another weed was pulled out. Ha ha ha, Zhang Xiaohua laughed. Wasn't this the seal from the weapon refining school's jade slip? He had used it when he was repairing the array flags in Rejuvenation Valley. He had also inadvertently used it when he was refining the Meridian Nourishing Pill. In the past, he had thought that it could only be used on things with the chi of heaven and earth. It seemed that this incantation was suitable for everything. Perhaps the medicine apprentices of the immortal Tao also worked like this. Let's not talk about how the medicine apprentices of the immortal Tao would get rid of weeds for the time being. However, using the weapon refining school's incantation to get rid of weeds, he believed that even the medicine apprentices of the weapon refining school might not be able to grasp it to such a high level. Wasn't he using a sledgehammer to crack a nut? After reaching out to clear the weeds in the medicinal field, Zhang Xiaohua came to an inconspicuous corner of the medicinal field and poured the spring water that she had soaked in primeval stones yesterday into several places. Zhang Xiaohua scanned the spring water with her spiritual sense and found that it was rich in the chi of heaven and earth. At this moment a voice shouted from behind. Junior brother Ren, why are you up so early? Junior brother has already cleaned this medicinal field, right? It was Bai Huan, who had just woken up. Zhang Xiaohua turned around and said, Good morning, senior brother Bai. Aren't you going to sleep a little longer? Junior brother was born in a farming family, so waking up early to work is a common occurrence. I'm already used to it. Senior martial brother, you don't have to be like me. Since Headmaster Chen isn't coming, you can sleep as much as you want. Bai Huan scratched his head and said, Seeing my junior fellow apprentice working so hard, I feel lazy as your senior fellow apprentice, but, I won't be polite to you. Oh, since you have cleaned up the weeds, leave the watering to me. You can have a rest. Zhang Xiaohua didn't hold back and said with a smile, That's good. Then it will be like this in the future. Little brother has finished all the work. Senior brother can take your time. Little brother will go back to sleep. If there's nothing else, senior brother won't disturb me. All right, I got it. Bai Huan nodded with a smile and then asked, I'm going down later. Is there anything else you want me to bring up? Let me hold it. Why should I make junior brother make another trip for something that is convenient? My David's deer has a bad temper. If it kicks you away, I can't afford it. Hearing that the David's deer was so irritable, Bai Huan smiled embarrassedly and said, All right, then let me hold it. Then he went back to water the weeds with a wooden bucket. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged, smiled, and went back to the cave with the wooden bucket. She took out the jade token and wanted to set a restriction formation in front of the cave, but after thinking for a while, she thought that it would be more conspicuous if she tried to cover it up. Zhang Xiaohua went into the elixir room that she found yesterday. Last night was very short, so Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to look carefully. At this time, except for the huge elixir furnace in the middle. The rest of the elixir room was empty. There was not a single jade bottle on the shelf next to it where the jade bottle should be placed. There was an empty table in front of her, but when her divine sense swept over it, she found a palm-sized jade slip placed neatly on it. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. To be honest, although the elixirs on the shelf were what she expected, she was most willing to get the jade slip that recorded elixir recipes, elixir refining methods, and magic arts. Floating, Zhang Xiaohua came to the table and reached out to grab it, but when she was a few inches away from the jade slip, there was a flash of light and a restriction formation stopped her. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't surprised. She released her divine sense and carefully observed the restriction formation protecting the jade slip. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes were filled with confusion, but he also seemed to have gained some enlightenment. He formed an incantation with his hands and struck the barrier. The transparent barrier flickered for a moment before disappearing again. It seemed that the incantation had no effect. Zhang Xiaohua reached into his bosom and was about to pull out Chasing Dream, but when his hand reached into his bosom, he couldn't pull out the small sword. If I use Chasing Dream, I can draw out a warm current from the mysterious place in my left arm and break this restriction, but this is just a trick. The last time I cut open Byron's golden ball, there was a lack of warm current. That is to say, the warm current in my left arm is limited. If I use Chasing Dream to break such a simple restriction, wouldn't it be a waste? If I come across a dangerous place with black gas in the future, what should I do? Zhang Xiaohua hesitated for a moment before coming to a decision. I'll never be able to pry into the mysteries of the Great Tao if I only resort to trickery like this. It's better to be down to earth and use the spells that I've comprehended. Furthermore, this Chasing Dream has the effect of breaking spells. It's best to save it for when I'm in danger. Zhang Xiaohua decisively took the hand that was holding Chasing Dream out of her chest and continued to study the protective restriction formation in front of her. After a long time, she smiled. This restriction formation was not common, but it was also not too complicated. It was only used to protect the chi of heaven and earth in the jade slip. It was not much different from the red restriction formation in the Misty Mountain Villa. However, the chi of heaven and earth in Chuanxiang cult was denser than in other places, so the strength of the restriction formation was still there, and it was still transparent. The jade slip that Elder Hua left behind contained many methods to break restrictions. Zhang Xiaohua understood most of them, but now that the immortal Tao had been destroyed, there were not many restrictions for him to practice. Although this restriction formation was not strong, it could still stump him for a long time. When he understood it, he was already confident. Dozens of complicated divine sense seals were inserted, and the transparent restriction formation flashed a few times. Then, like a bubble bursting, it disappeared with a pop sound. Yes, it disappeared in the divine sense. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the fruits of his labor and was very satisfied. The feeling of breaking restrictions by himself and using Chasing Dream to break restrictions was really different. Holding the jade slip in his hand, Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense penetrated it without hesitation. Sure enough, it was not outside of his expectations. This was the pill room of Chuanxiang cult. Yuhuandan pill, spirit congealing pill, spirit cleansing pill, and so on. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. He carefully looked at the prescription of the Yuhuandan pill. The prescription clearly recorded the main ingredients, the age of the herbs, the method of operation, and so on. Looking at the time of the pill's gestation, Zhang Xiaohua secretly nodded. It seemed that the Yuhuandan pill and Meridian Nourishing pill of Chuanxiang cult belonged to the Immortal Tao's low-level pills. But when he carefully looked at the main ingredients of the Yuhuandan pill, he could not help but shake his head. The two main ingredients of the Yuhuandan pill were recorded in the Compendium of Herbs. The age of the two ingredients was also more than 50 years. It seemed that in his memory, there was no such ingredient in the herbs that he had just obtained. However, Zhang Xiaohua immediately laughed. Nonsense, this Yuhuandan pill was the secret medicine of Chuanxiang cult. The inner alchemists knew how to refine it, so they naturally knew what herbs were needed. These herbs must be protected. How could they let an ordinary disciple of Tua Danhal have it? Then he looked at the other pills, but he did not see the herbs described. Zhang Xiaohua was not discouraged. The qi of heaven and earth was passing away. It was a great fortune to be able to obtain this jade slip. Now that he knew the alchemy room, he only needed to collect the pills to refine it. Right now he had to refine the alchemy furnace first. Carefully putting the jade slip into his money bag, Zhang Xiaohua turned to face the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace that was taller than him. Under the brilliance of the luminous pearl, the huge body of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace looked very imposing. Looking at it, Zhang Xiaohua could not help but be puzzled. Should high-grade goods be big? Penetrating his spiritual sense into the furnace, Zhang Xiaohua carefully reviewed the method of refining the alchemy furnace. In the beginning, Zhang Xiaohua was still beaming with joy, but in the end, his relaxed expression gradually disappeared and his brows knitted together. The incantation described how to refine the alchemy furnace. The first part was similar to the method in Zhang Xiaohua's money bag, but the last step was to spit out a trace of the refiner's life origin qi into the alchemy furnace. Only then could he completely control it. What is this life origin qi? Zhang Xiaohua was extremely puzzled. Chapter 572. What is true life origin? That's right, who knows? Perhaps the legendary foundation establishment cultivators would know. In any case, Zhang Xiaohua, who had just reached the middle stage of the aura refining realm, was completely baffled. However, although she didn't know how to spit out the true life origin, she could control the majority of the spells. Zhang Xiaohua also didn't want to give up this opportunity to refine the pill. If she knew the last step, wouldn't it be fine if she didn't spit it out? Presumably, Zhang Xiaohua closed her eyes and pondered for a while. This refining spell wasn't complicated. She only needed to memorize it for a moment to familiarize herself with it. Then she practiced a little with her hands. She took a deep breath and transferred her true qi to her fingertips. Meticulously, she made a hand seal and sent it into the pill furnace. As the hand seal was sent in, the huge pill furnace gradually moved from motionless to slightly responding. In the end, it actually buzzed, as if a giant was waking up. Seeing that the pill furnace also emitted a 5-colored brilliance, Zhang Xiaohua's forehead gradually became sweaty. However, her face was abnormally excited. Although she had manipulated the small pill furnace like this before, compared to now, the feeling was simply like a little boy playing with mud. The buzzing sound of the pill furnace seemed to be from afar at first, then moved to her ears, then to her eyes, and finally seemed to reach her heart. When the true qi in Zhang Xiaohua's body was about to dry up, the hand seal also reached the end. The buzzing sound also reached the extreme, and the brilliance also became more and more resplendent. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua felt that she seemed to have a trace of connection with the pill furnace. However, this connection was faintly discernible, and she couldn't be sure. Just when she needed to break through this layer of window paper, Zhang Xiaohua stopped. Yes, the next step was to spit. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how to do it, so she had to stop. With the stop of Zhang Xiaohua's hand seal, the buzzing sound of the pill furnace gradually stopped, and the 5-colored brilliance also gradually faded. However, the buzzing sound was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, and the brilliance was sometimes bright and sometimes dim. It seemed that it had not reached the climax, and it still wanted to continue. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and shrugged, saying, Pill furnace, I'm really sorry. I also don't know how to spit. That's it. Finally, you can use it. Be content. After that, regardless of the pill furnace's situation, she sat cross-legged, took out primordial stones, and absorbed the primordial qi inside. Not to mention that Zhang Xiaohua had finished handling the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. In the cave, Bai Huan watered the herbal field, tidied it up, and went down the peak, straight to Chen Fengxiao's residence. Chen Fengxiao was talking to several Luohan and other managers in the hall. When he saw Bai Huan coming over, he felt very strange and waved his hand to let the others leave. He said with a smile, Junior brother Bai, it's been hard on you. Usually, you are very free here. In the future, you will have to suffer at the top of the mountain. Hearing this, Bai Huan quickly bowed and said, "It's nothing. It's my honor to be able to do something for Head Chen. Moreover, Head Chen has not mistreated me." "Well, that's good. However, you just came up the mountain yesterday, and now you come to me. Is there something wrong with junior brother Ren?" This Bai Huan did not know where to start and said, "Head Chen, there is nothing wrong with him. Junior brother Ren is indeed good at planting herbs, just like the medicine boy from Rejuvenation Valley. It's just that It's just what?" Chen Fengxiao was also curious. He sent Bai Huan to keep an eye on Zhang Xiaohua because he wanted to see if there was anything unusual about Zhang Xiaohua. It had only been a day, but she had already given herself away. Therefore, Bai Huan told him that Zhang Xiaohua refused to live in the same hut as him, and insisted on living in a cave by herself. What? Chen Fengxiao was also stunned. There is such a person? Instead of living in a good house, he insisted on living in a cave? Chen Fengxiao was also puzzled. He frowned and said, "Is this Ren Xiaoyao a woman?" Pfft. Bai Huan laughed and said, "Head Chen is wise. When did Rejuvenation Valley send a female medicine boy? Moreover, do you think a woman can defeat Qingshi? Besides, although junior brother Ren has just arrived, we have been together for a few days. No matter how I look at him, he is not a woman." Chen Fengxiao glared at Bai Huan, and Bai Huan immediately choked back her laughter. Then Chen Fengxiao secretly laughed at his own sensitivity. He is the son-in-law of Rejuvenation Valley. How can he be a woman? Then why does he want to live by himself? Is there any secret? What is the secret? Chen Fengxiao was really puzzled. Then he asked Bai Huan to tell him what she had just said, including the situation after they left yesterday. Still at a loss, Chen Fengxiao rubbed his temples with his hands and thought. Needless to say, this Ren Xiaorao must have some secret. But he is alone on the high Tianmu Peak in a cave that no one has ever paid attention to. That shabby cave is just a small place. What can he do? Practice internal strength? Yes, I guess he is practicing internal strength. A knowing smile appeared on Chen Fengxiao's face. Yes, he had also practiced internal strength. Naturally, he knew the environment that was important for practicing internal strength. That night was the most important time to cultivate internal strength. It was the most important time to cultivate internal strength. Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts were not good, but her lightness skill was good. She must have a certain level of attainment in internal strength. He must practice at night. Therefore, he had to live in the cave and cultivate by himself, so that he would not be disturbed by Bai Huan. It had to be said that Chen Fengxiao's conjecture was infinitely close to the truth. Since he's cultivating his internal energy, then he's only trying to increase his strength, so that he'll have a chance to pass the outer sect assessment and become an outer sect disciple. This is exactly the same as what he said earlier. And, as long as he doesn't interfere with the affairs of Tianmu Peak, and doesn't interact with the disciples of the Grass and Pill divisions, why should I care about him? The more hardworking he is, the higher his martial arts will be. In the future, I will be more confident in winning the bet between the Grass division and Pill division. Why should I not do it? After making up his mind, Chen Fengxiao walked in front of Bai Huan and patted him on the shoulder. "Thank you for your hard work, junior brother Bai. Then let junior brother Ren go. He can do whatever he wants. You just have to keep an eye on him. In fact, you don't have to report to me too much. If you see anything unusual in the future, it won't be too late to tell me. If you come here frequently, you may attract junior brother Ren's attention. Oh, of course, we don't have any bad intentions. It's just that he is new here. It's only right that we care about him. If our good intentions are misunderstood by junior brother Ren, it won't be good. Don't you think so?" That's right, that's right. Headmaster Chen's warmth has blessed all the brothers of Tianmu Peak. Bai Huan's flattery continued. "Okay, junior brother Bai. Go back now and work hard. Your future is limitless. I have faith in you. Thank you for your guidance, Headmaster Chen. I understand." After saying that, Bai Huan bowed and left. Looking at Bai Huan's gradually disappearing figure, Chen Fengxiao rubbed his chin with his hand and muttered to himself, "This junior brother is really interesting. He looks like a person with some ideas, but he keeps such a low profile. Does he only practice martial arts? It's true that practicing martial arts can make you stand out in the incense order. But can you compare to the inner disciples of the incense order? Can you compare to Lu Lihong? Oh, that's right. This guy also exchanged a lot of medicinal herbs. He has quite a lot of good karma, and has quite a bit of prestige among the disciples. Could it be that he really did exchange medicinal herbs as he said? Was it really because he had no choice? Or did he have other plans? I can't see through him. I still have to ask Wu Dalong. If this interesting junior brother can really refine pills, then it'll be a secret of my grass division. Thinking of this, Chen Fengxiao's heart was burning with passion. Although he had the highest level of martial arts on Tianmu Peak, and was much higher than Wu Zhouxiu, his actual right to speak was much less than Wu Zhouxiu. The most fundamental reason was that Wu Zhouxiu controlled the pill department. The pill department was the place where pills were refined. All the hard currency pills had to pass through the pill department. As mentioned earlier, although the pill expanding hall had strict regulations to control the flow of pills, after all, there are policies at the top and countermeasures at the bottom. Wu Zhouxiu controlled a lot of resources from the pill department. If I can control some pills, Tianmu Peak should be mine. A trace of greed appeared in Chen Fengxiao's eyes. He couldn't sit still any longer. He immediately stood up and walked out. In the pill room, Zhang Xiaohua was cultivating with his eyes closed. The yuan qi of heaven and earth in the vitality stones continuously rushed into his meridians. The speed was actually 2 times faster than before. With the replenishment of the yuan qi, his dried-up meridians were gradually filled with vital qi. Not far away, the newly refined 8 trigrams purple gold furnace also gradually regained its luster. With the replenishment of the vital qi, it seemed to be slowly regaining its vitality. After an unknown period of time, Zhang Xiaohua opened his eyes and secretly checked. He was delighted to find that his cultivation, which had already reached the peak of the 6th layer of qi refining when he was cultivating in Rejuvenation Valley, seemed to have taken half a step forward again. His path to the 7th layer of qi refining was already slightly loosened. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. Ever since he had reached the 6th layer of qi refining, he had never stopped cultivating the Carefree Heart Sutra. However, his progress every day was minuscule. Afterwards, he had made some progress in repairing the formation flags. Today, he had actually taken another crucial half a step in refining the pill furnace. It really was the so-called cultivation should be done during the day. Pursing his lips and smiling, Zhang Xiaohua stood up. He stretched out his hand and pointed at one side of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. The tightly shut mouth of the furnace slightly rotated, revealing the dark space inside. Soon after, Zhang Xiaohua formed a seal with his hand. With a flick of his finger, the seal landed on the platform below the pill furnace. With a light boom, a wisp of flame actually appeared on the platform. Soon after, the entire platform was set ablaze. The green flame was precisely the bottom of the pill furnace. When the temperature of the pill furnace was suitable, Zhang Xiaohua struck out a few more seals. They hit the opening of the furnace that had just been opened. With another boom, a wisp of flame also appeared inside the pill furnace near the opening of the furnace. This light red wisp of flame contained an even finer purple color. It jumped and jumped as if it had a life of its own. Zhang Xiaohua murmured. So this is the legendary true Samadhi fire? Chapter 573. According to the records in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, the true Samadhi fire was a fire born from wood fire, stone fire and air fire. It was the fire necessary to refine top-grade elixirs. And this true Samadhi fire was also a fire specially used by qi cultivators. It was different from the fire in the mortal world. Normal water could not extinguish it. It was 100 times stronger than the fire that Zhang Xiaohua could produce now. Looking at the faint red flame in the pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua did not seem to feel its heat. Thus, he took out a piece of jade from his bosom and used a small sword to cut off a piece. He threw it into the flame. With a qi sound, the thumb-sized piece of jade immediately turned into a wisp of green smoke. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua nodded secretly and cut off another piece. After casting a spell into the flame, he threw the jade piece into the flame. This time, the jade piece did not turn into green smoke. Instead, under the tempering of the flame, it gradually shrank and finally became a piece of jade liquid the size of a soybean. Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand, and the jade liquid flew out of the furnace and stopped in front of Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua used his eyes to look at the jade liquid, and used his divine sense to scan it. That jade liquid actually had a slight fluctuation of vitality. The true Samadhi fire is indeed amazing. Zhang Xiaohua sighed secretly. It's just that this fire is used to refine high-grade elixirs. Normally, refining low-grade elixirs is like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. It's not worth it. After extinguishing the true Samadhi fire, Zhang Xiaohua looked along the 8 sides of the furnace. There were openings on all 8 sides of the furnace, and each opening had a name. They were Qian Kuan Sen Dui Zhen Zhen Li Kansas. These 8 openings had their own corresponding formations. When refining elixirs according to the attributes of the herbs, if different herbs were thrown into different openings for tempering, the medicinal properties would be increased by 30%, and the success rate of refining elixirs would be increased by 20%. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. He already had some experience with the attributes of herbs. It should be divided into the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. How could there be the 8 trigrams attribute here? He had even set up 8 arrays according to the 8 attributes. Furthermore, there was the phrase pill success rate. Could it be that refining high-level pills was really that difficult? However, the current Zhang Xiaohua could only refine low-tier medicinal pills. She hadn't even come into contact with middle-tier medicinal pills. How would she know the difficulties of high-tier medicinal pills? Fortunately, since this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could refine high-tier medicinal pills, if she didn't use the true Samadhi fire, it would be the same as the Rejuvenation Valley's furnace. It was more than enough to refine the Meridian Soothing Pill. The flames on the platform below the furnace were magical. It was different from the earth fire in the Rejuvenation Valley, and the pill department on the west side of Heaven Eye Peak. This flame was burning on the platform out of thin air. After Zhang Xiaohua finished observing the true Samadhi fire, she extinguished the flames on the platform. Very naturally, she swept her divine sense over the platform. There were complicated symbols carved on the platform. It seemed to be a kind of formation. Presumably, the earth fire could be connected to the bottom of the platform, and this formation was to restrict the earth fire. The pill department on the west side of Heaven Eye Peak should have been the same as the platform in this pill department. It was just that no one was able to perform the incantation, or did not know how to ignite the fire. They had no choice but to tear down the platform and install a mechanism to control the earth fire. Perhaps Rejuvenation Valley was the same 10,000 years ago. Zhang Xiaohua thought. After lamenting the wonders of the immortal Tao, Zhang Xiaohua struck out several incantations according to the records on the furnace. That 8 trigrams purple gold furnace actually shrank a lot like a small furnace. Zhang Xiaohua took out her money pouch and took out the pile of jade coffin lids. She tried to store the furnace inside as well. Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out the 2 pill furnaces and piled the unimportant items in the money pouch on the ground to free up the space in the money pouch. That was because there were still many medicinal herbs piled up on the mountainside of Heaven Eye Peak. They were all needed for refining pills. Although they were worthless in the eyes of the pill-expanding hall disciples, it was better to store them as soon as possible. However, it was indeed a little troublesome to pack them up. If she put all these jade boxes into the money pouch and brought them back to the pill department, it would definitely attract the attention of the other disciples. At the very least, Chen Fengxiao would doubt how she did it, or where these jade boxes were placed. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua turned her gaze to the pile of jade coffin lids. Only by refining them into jade boxes to store the medicinal herbs could she take away the medicinal herbs in the jade boxes. She did as she said. Anyway, there was earth fire in this pill department. She could just treat it as familiarizing herself with refining weapons. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua raised the earth fire again and broke open the jade. She wanted to refine a batch of jade boxes of different sizes. The jade boxes for storing medicinal herbs looked inconspicuous, but in fact, they were quite troublesome. It would be easy if they were slender cubes like those of the pill-expanding hall disciples of the Chuanxiang cult. However, Zhang Xiaohua's jade boxes needed to be set with inhibition. After making only a few, she felt that her genuine qi was not enough, so she had to stop to replenish her genuine qi. She did this and stopped until it was late. However, she only made about 10 of them. Feeling that it was getting late, Zhang Xiaohua extinguished the earth fire and went out directly without packing up. On Tianmu Peak, the sun had already set in the west. There was only a trace of light in the west, and the east had long been hidden in darkness. Zhang Xiaohua came out of the cave and felt that someone was looking at her. She used her spiritual awareness and found that it was Bai Huan who was squatting behind a big tree. Zhang Xiaohua pretended that she did not know. She walked slowly to the medicine field and looked down carefully. Bai Huan came out from behind the tree and said loudly, "Junior brother, run, it's already dark. Why are you still wandering in the medicine field?" Zhang Xiaohua looked up and smiled. "So it's senior brother Bai. Alas, I stayed in the cave for a day and was very bored, so I came out for a walk. Oh, the medicine field is not germinating. I don't know why. If we can find the reason, won't we be able to hold our heads high?" "Forget it," Bai Huan said disdainfully. Originally, the star tree fruit was planted at the top of Tianmu Peak, which was the main ingredient for refining elixirs by the inner disciples. Moreover, it was growing very well, with a medicinal age of 20 years. But 4 or 5 years ago, our hall master suddenly led the inner disciples here and searched all over the peak for a suitable place. In the end, they settled on these few medicinal fields and plucked all the original star tree fruits and transplanted them to the side. Only then did they plant some unknown seeds. Well, since then they have never sprouted. Moreover, those inner disciples would come here every year to check and dig out the seeds to take a look. From time to time, they would even change the seeds. How can we do something that even the inner disciples can't do? It's almost the same as a dream. 4 or 5 years ago, Zhang Xiaohua narrowed her eyes and thought. Wasn't that the time when the Misty School was destroyed? Was it also when the incense cult attacked the Misty Villa? Could it be that the disciples of the incense cult saw the germinating seeds of the Misty Villa and thought of planting them themselves? But I don't know what kind of herbs were planted in the Misty Villa, and what kind of herbs were planted in the incense cult? However, since even the germination of the seeds requires very rich qi of heaven and earth, this kind of herb must be extremely rare or something that has long been extinct. But since it is an extinct herb, where did they get the seeds? Well, the qi of heaven and earth in the incense cult is richer than outside. Maybe it can preserve the seeds. Oh, what about the Huanxi Villa? They can't preserve it, can they? Alas, forget it. Don't think about it. I'll just ask Sister Oyen when I have the chance in the future. After thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, "That's not necessarily true. The inner disciples are only stronger than us in martial arts. When it comes to planting herbs, doesn't the whole incense cult rely on the grass brothers of the pill-expanding hall?" Bai Huan was also beaming with joy. Junior brother Run is right. The herbs we use to spread the incense cult are really the hard work of our brothers from the grass division. Then she changed the topic. But we only plant ordinary herbs. The ones that don't germinate must be rare herbs. That is not the specialty of our grass division. Hey, you also know that it is a rare herb? Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. Just as he was about to speak, Bai Huan beat him to it. Anyway, I'm not interested in this. As long as I water, weed, and do my job well, I'll wait for the inner disciples to check. Oh, if Junior Brother Run is interested in this, you may pay more attention to it. If you can really find the way to germinate, then you will really be rich. You can get the favor of the inner disciples and become an outer disciple, or go to the inner disciple to learn alchemy. It will be easy for you. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and she asked, "Do inner disciples also practice alchemy?" Bai Huan shook her head. Inner disciples themselves don't refine elixirs. They have special alchemists who refine elixirs for them. Each of these alchemists is regarded as powerful by the old consecrators of our pill department. It is said that only the alchemists of their inner sect can refine jade rejuvenation elixir. You can never imagine the treatment they receive. What kind of treatment can I not imagine? Oh, by the way, how do the inner alchemists practice alchemy? This Bai Huan was a little hesitant and said, to be honest, I have only seen the disciples of the pill department practice alchemy. The few old alchemists are not as good as us. How can I know how the inner disciples practice alchemy? Their treatment is just a rumor. How can disciples like us enter the lingering fragrance peak? Can't we go to the lingering fragrance peak? Zhang Xiaohua was a little curious. Well, only the inner disciples, those who are related to the inner disciples, and the hall masters and deputy hall masters of each hall, can enter the lingering fragrance peak. Others can't enter the lingering fragrance peak. What about the outer disciples? The outer disciples are just disciples of the Wuming Hall. Of course, they can't enter the lingering fragrance peak. However, if an outer disciple is very outstanding and can be favored by the inner alchemists or inner teachers, he can enter the lingering fragrance peak. Well, by the way, if an outer disciple can pass the inner assessment, he can also enter the lingering fragrance peak. Alas, unfortunately, as far as I know, it has been 100 years. Except for a genius 300 years ago, no one is qualified to take the inner assessment. Inner assessment. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned again. This was the first time she had heard of it. Well, the outer disciples have an assessment. If they pass it, they can be qualified to travel in Jianghu. The results of this assessment are divided into 3 grades, high, medium, and low. Only with a high grade can they be qualified to take the inner assessment. It has been hundreds of years since anyone got a high grade in the outer assessment. Chapter 574. So complicated? Zhang Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. Aren't they just inner disciples? Why are the classes so clear? It's not as simple and easy to understand as the commoner and brocade disciples of the Misty School. Zhang Xiaohua curled his lips and said, according to Senior Brother Bai, the disciples of the Pill Expanding Hall are the lowest disciples in the fragrance cult, right? Bai Huan smiled and said, Junior Apprentice Brother Ren, what are you talking about? Sir Hierarch has always taught us that no matter which hall we are from, no matter what business we do, we are all disciples of the fragrant cult and are equal. Then he whispered, we are not the worst. The worst is the Qiankuan Hall. They are the handymen and have to do everything in the cult. They can't be picky and suffer hardships. Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose and said secretly, that's right. You guys are still in the mood to gamble. Planting medicine fields is not the worst. Alas, I don't know how the disciples of the Misty Hall live. He wanted to change the topic and ask, but thinking that Bai Huan might not know anything, he said, it's late. Senior Brother Bai, why don't you go to bed early? You have to weed and water the fields tomorrow. Bai Huan waved his hand and said, that's trivial. As a disciple of the grass sect, I have the awareness of being a disciple of the grass sect. These things will not be delayed. If Junior Brother Ren is tired, he should go to bed early. But why don't I see Junior Brother Ren practicing martial arts? On the mountainside, the disciples of the grass sect have specially set aside a big training field for several arhats. Sometimes I also see them practicing. I saw Senior Brother Qian lift such a big stone weight himself. It's really amazing. As he said, Bai Huan made an exaggerated gesture with his hands. Zhang Xiaohua pursed his lips and smiled, saying, I have my own time to practice martial arts. Senior Brother Bai, don't worry. Oh, I see. Bai Huan looked enlightened. I won't disturb Junior Brother Ren. Don't worry, don't worry. Haha, you must tell me in advance the next time you gamble. Bai Huan was still worried. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. Don't worry, Senior Martial Brother Bai. I've said it many times. Then he looked at the sky and said, it's still early. I'll go down the mountain and bring the 4 odd beasts up. I'll go with you, Bai Huan said first. Don't. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him. I'd better go by myself. It's too slow for 2 people to go. I'll be back in a moment. Oh, I understand. Junior brother, go quickly. It's getting dark. Bai Huan had a look of understanding. Zhang Xiaohua smiled at Bai Huan and stood up. Without looking back, she jumped straight down, which made Bai Huan panic for a while. And then her face was full of envy. The small courtyard on the mountainside was still cold and cheerless. Only the 4 odd beasts were strolling around the courtyard. When they smelled Zhang Xiaohua's breath, they cried out and stuck their tongues on Zhang Xiaohua's hand, licking it again and again. Zhang Xiaohua patted Huan's head to comfort her, and then walked into the courtyard. The mountain of jade boxes had been moved into the house by the disciples of the Grass Division under Qiu Weicheng's command, and the whole house was full. After entering the house, Zhang Xiaohua did not light the lamp. She scanned the house with her divine sense, and then took out the money bag. With a wave of her hand, hundreds of jade boxes filled with qi of heaven and earth were put into the money bag. The small mountain of jade boxes suddenly lost hundreds of them, but it was not obvious. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to take more herbs, but the herbs needed for the Yuhuandan pill, spirit congealing pill, and other secret elixirs of the fragrance division were not available here. She could only refine the soothing meridians pill and the bone congealing pill. The formula of the bone congealing pill had not been carefully studied, so she did not know what herbs were needed. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua picked up the great wisdom sword from the corner of the house, flashed out of the house, and then brought Huan up to the top of Tianmu Peak. However, just as Zhang Xiaohua came out of the bamboo forest, she suddenly realized that in the corner of the bamboo forest, there was a figure quietly hiding behind a rock, staring at her. Her divine sense swept over, and it was actually the great guardian deity of the Dan department, Zhou Shuming. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Could it be that this guy is interested in the herbs in the small courtyard? But that's not right. If he wanted to take the herbs, he would have taken them a few days ago. Why would he wait until now? Could it be? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but let out a humph from her nose. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohua rode on Huan all the way up, and Zhou Shuming followed from afar, not coming close. When Zhang Xiaohua reached the peak and casually put Huan aside, Zhou Shuming quietly hid in a big tree and watched from afar. Alas, Zhang Xiaohua sighed. This Wu Dalong and Headmaster Chen have the same thoughts. They both want to know my every move. But what do I have that is worthy of your attention? What I don't want you to know, can you know? You can only know what I want you to know. Shaking her head, Zhang Xiaohua no longer paid attention to the guy on the big tree in the distance, who was still trying his best to hide his tracks. She picked up the great wisdom sword and returned to the cave. After inserting the sword at the entrance of the cave and setting up a restriction, Zhang Xiaohua entered the pill room. First, she took out the several hundred jade boxes from the money pouch and selected the most precious few herbs. She placed them into the jade box she refined and set up a restriction. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua take out the pill formula for the bone solidifying pill and carefully studied it from beginning to end. The bone solidifying pill was a pill commonly used by the immortal Tao, used to heal injured bones and tendons. There were a total of 3 main ingredients: iron bone grass, fragrant soul wood, and blackwood fruit. Early on, when the immortal Tao was flourishing, these herbs were commonly seen. Moreover, they were very old. The most powerful bone solidifying pill could regenerate broken bones. Wow, Zhang Xiaohua was very excited. This is the true method of the immortal Tao, regenerating broken bones. Isn't this just a myth in the legends? Although Zhang Xiaohua had successfully refined the meridian soothing pill, its effects were still uncertain. Zhang Xiaohua herself didn't know whether she should try it or not. However, this bone solidifying pill was really the immortal pill that people usually talked about. How could she not cry out in surprise? The most important thing was that the iron bone grass, fragrant soul wood, and golden fruit were the more commonly used herbs recorded in the Compendium of Materia Medica. A few days ago, Zhang Xiaohua exchanged pills from Chen Fengxiao, Si Huinan, and Bai Huan in the gambling fight. In fact, it was precisely because these 3 herbs were relatively common in the past that Zhang Xiaohua could easily exchange for them. As for many other herbs, because Zhang Xiaohua didn't pay attention to them, she didn't know what good ones there were. Since the main ingredients had been prepared, there was no need to talk about the auxiliary ingredients. Zhang Xiaohua carefully recalled that there were a lot of auxiliary ingredients in the jade box just now. Some of them should be in the small courtyard on the mountainside. When it was time to refine the bone solidifying pill, she could go and get them. Well, there was no need. Anyway, she would refine the jade box in a few days and bring the following herbs to the elixir room. The bone solidifying pill was a low-level elixir, and its refining method was similar to that of the meridian soothing pill. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the refining method on the prescription and put it away. Then she ignited the earth fire on the platform and continued to refine the jade box for the herbs. This time, she didn't use Zhang Xiaohua's own jasper. Wasn't the empty jade box just right? She should save as much as she could. Until late at night, Zhang Xiaohua didn't go out. Instead, she sat cross-legged in the elixir room and practiced her carefree heart sutra. In this way, Zhang Xiaohua took care of the medicine field in the early morning and hid in the elixir room to refine the jade box. Then she comprehended the heavenly Tao and the formation and restriction. Then, she would show up in the medicine field from time to time and water the spring water that had been soaked in primordial stones in an inconspicuous corner of the medicine field. Well, when the night was deep, Zhang Xiaohua still had to avoid Zhou Shuming's gaze. Every day, she would go to the small courtyard on the mountainside with the 100 Herbs Compendium in her hand and identify the herbs in the jade box in the small courtyard. Then, she would put them into her own jade box and leave the empty jade box in the small room. Needless to say, the fragrance cult was indeed a great cult with immortal inheritance. And the pill-expanding hall was indeed the place where the fragrance cult supplied herbs. There were thousands of strange herbs in these thousands of jade boxes. Many of them were not recorded in the ancient books of Rejuvenation Valley. They were all immortal herbs recorded in the 100 Herbs Compendium. Every time she saw rare herbs, Zhang Xiaohua secretly admired her own wisdom. If she hadn't had the idea of exchanging elixirs for herbs, how could she have made these disciples take out their herbs? Moreover, Bai Huan and Si Huinan had made a good start by exchanging rare or unknown herbs for elixirs. Although they didn't want to say it clearly, how could there be a wall in the world that didn't have a crack? The disciples of the herb division and the pill division had already investigated them thoroughly. Therefore, when those disciples took out herbs to exchange for the elixirs they owed Zhang Xiaohua, they also lost face. They were all very good herbs. Of course, if they weren't rare, how could they be collected by them? Not to mention Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu, they took out even rarer herbs. They couldn't afford to lose face. Exchanging ordinary herbs for elixirs? Could they be taken out? It was very tiring to refine the jade boxes. It was even more tiring to take out the herbs from the jade boxes and find the names and uses of the herbs from the 100 Herbs Compendium. Not to mention repeating the same action in thousands of jade boxes. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua had been busy tirelessly and happily for nearly 20 days. Only then did she gradually transfer her astonishing wealth from the small courtyard at the mountainside to the pill room at the top of the mountain, leaving only a pile of empty jade boxes in the small courtyard. Alas, it wasn't that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to take these jade boxes. Unfortunately, the space in her purse was limited and she really couldn't fit them all. Moreover, she had to hide something, so she had to reluctantly part with them. On this day, Zhang Xiaohua was comprehending the way of heaven in the pill room. Suddenly, her heart stirred. She escaped into the cave, tidied her clothes and walked out. She heard someone shouting outside the cave. "Little brother, are you here?" Chapter 575. That voice belonged to the head of Tianmu Peak's grass division, Chen Fengxiao. Zhang Xiaohua replied as she walked. "Master Chen, is it? Little brother is sleeping. Please wait a moment, I'll be out soon." Although she said soon, she had already walked to the side of the cave. When she exited the cave, she saw Chen Fengxiao standing nearby with his hands clasped behind his back. Zhang Xiaohua quickly walked forward and bowed. Just as she was about to speak, Chen Fengxiao beat her to it. "Little brother, you're in such a good mood. You don't even want to stay in a nice little house but insist on staying in this cave. If I hadn't come up the mountain to find you, I wouldn't have known." Seeing that Chen Fengxiao was trying to hide something, Zhang Xiaohua also smiled. She turned around and pointed at the sun that was already high up in the sky. Little brother's lifelong wish is to bask in the warmth of the sun from time to time. Look, isn't this cave to the east? The first ray of sunlight is delivered to my eyes every day. It's truly like a celestial life. Celestial life? Chen Fengxiao laughed hoarsely. Little brother's request is truly extraordinary. However, this cave is dark and damp. Don't let it affect little brother's health. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. Thank you for your concern, Head Chen. Before I went to Rejuvenation Valley, little brother also stayed in the cave at home. It's fine, it's fine. Then she immediately changed the topic. Head Chen, may I know why you've come so early in the morning? Could it be that you want to bet again? Aha. Hearing this, Chen Fengxiao smiled. It seems that little brother didn't get enough of the last bet. You must have gained a lot, so you're looking forward to the next one. However, we schemed too much against the pill division last time. They haven't found a way to deal with little brother yet. I think we'll have to wait. It can't be, Head Chun. Our grass division was originally weaker than the pill division. Even with me, we still haven't caught up to them. Why are they afraid? Chen Feng smiled and waved his hand, saying, these are just a few reasons. Actually, it's not like we can just hold a bet whenever we want. If our Tianmu Peak had a bet every few days, how would the disciples have the mood to work? Even if he wanted to concoct pills, he would still be thinking about the bet. How could he succeed? It's already good enough that we can hold a duel once a month. It was purely a coincidence that little brother participated last time. It's precisely because we haven't held one for a long time that Wu Dalong brought it up. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. So that's how it is. If it's too frequent, Bai Yefeng probably won't agree, right? That's right. Moreover, the pill department seems to be busy with some missions these days. It's not easy for me to find Wu Dalong to discuss some matters. Then he looked around and said, actually, I have something to tell you this time. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said in a low voice, Leader Chen, if there's anything you need, please instruct me. I'll do my best to accomplish it. Haha. Chen Feng laughed awkwardly and said, little brother, don't say that. This time, I'm here because he seemed to be unable to say it out loud. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, could it be that head boss Chen still wants some medicinal pills? I don't have any more here. Not at all, not at all. Chen Feng waved his hand repeatedly. For such a miraculous medicine like the Yuhuandan pill, one is enough. How could I dare to think more? If it weren't for Wu Dalong's carelessness, I would still be salivating at the side. Well, this time it's really related to medicinal pills. Seeing that Chen Feng couldn't say it out loud, Zhang Xiaohua was very curious. She lowered her voice and said, oh, I understand. Is it about alchemy? Chen Feng's face was a little uncomfortable. He said, yes. Zhang Xiaohua looked expectant. She rubbed her hands and said, that's great. When can you take me to see the alchemy room of our pill-expanding hall? Well, Chen Feng became more and more embarrassed. He said, this time I'm here to talk to little brother. This matter may be ruined. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and asked curiously, what's wrong? Can't you find an alchemy furnace for me to practice? Practice? Chen Feng was also taken aback. Zhang Xiaohua slapped his forehead with a remorseful expression and said in a low voice, Head Manager Chen, please don't blame me. This little brother hid some things from you the last time. Although this little brother has learned alchemy in Rejuvenation Valley, but it's just a simple technique. Alas, forget it. Head Manager Chen isn't an outsider, so this little brother will speak frankly. This little brother came to preach the incense religion in order to learn the lost alchemy techniques from the old masters of the pill-expanding hall. I originally wanted to bring this matter up after I got familiar with Head Manager Chen, but since Head Manager has brought it up, I can only say it in advance. Oh, I see. Chen Feng's face was a little strange. He said with a smile, so little brother has such a plan. Haha, I can understand, I can understand. However, I'll have to disappoint little brother. Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand. Why? Didn't little brother say some time ago that you can practice alchemy? But our grass division doesn't have an alchemy room. I went to find Wu Dalong of the Pill Division, but I couldn't find him. I just caught him at dinner the day before yesterday. When he heard what I said, he immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. Only then did I know that the alchemy room of the Pill Division has rules. Only the disciples of the Pill Division who have passed the assessment of the Hall Master have the right to enter. We of the Grass Division don't have the right to enter at all. Because no one in the Grass Division knows alchemy, I also overlooked it. I thought that since our brothers of the Grass Division can sneak in to watch, we can definitely borrow it. But now, it seems that even if we sneak in, it's fine as long as we don't touch those alchemy furnaces. But if we want to secretly practice alchemy, it's absolutely impossible. Ah, so it's like that. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of surprise. When he went to take a look last night, the disciples of the Pill Division were guarding the door of the alchemy room. What Chen Fengxiao said was true. Can't we even use it for a while? Zhang Xiaohua said regretfully. Then if I look for Elder Lei and the others to learn alchemy, wouldn't it be? Chen Fengxiao nodded and said, that's right. Our disciples of the Grass Division can't use the alchemy furnaces of the Pill Division. Moreover, I'm afraid your wish will be in vain. Wu Dalong can't even lend us his alchemy furnaces, let alone ask their elders to learn alchemy. Then Zhang Xiaohua wanted to say something, but stopped. Chen Fengxiao immediately understood and waved his hand. Don't think about other things. Since you're a medicine boy sent by the Rejuvenation Valley, you're a member of the Grass Division alive and dead. There's no way you can go to the Pill Division. Perhaps being an outer disciple is the place where you have the most hope and the most future. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of disappointment and loneliness. Chen Fengxiao couldn't bear to see Zhang Xiaohua like this. He reached out and patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder saying, it doesn't matter. Little brother, your skills are very good. If you practice more on this mountain peak, you might really be able to join the outer disciples in a few years. Although he said this, his tone showed that he didn't expect Zhang Xiaohua to have such a day. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and looked at the sun in the sky. He said confidently, yes, I will. There will be such a day. Thank you, Head Chen, for your encouragement. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's face full of vitality, Chen Fengxiao was suddenly touched. Wasn't he like this when he was young? Sigh, it's a pity. Then Chen Fengxiao said, then little brother, you can cultivate on this mountain peak. I'm really looking forward to another disciple from our Grass Division, who can break into the outer disciples. After saying this, Chen Fengxiao patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder again, and walked down the mountain. He had already given up on the idea of refining pills. First of all, the Pill Division couldn't lend their pill room to the Grass Division. First of all, this Zhang Xiaohua was just a shibei trash. He actually wanted to use the Pill Division's pill room to practice. Moreover, he wanted to learn alchemy from the old consecrator of the Pill Division. How could this be possible? At this moment, Chen Fengxiao was secretly laughing at his own absurdity these days. Thinking about it, it was impossible. This Zhang Xiaohua was just a medicine boy sent by the Rejuvenation Valley. If he knew the ancient method of refining pills, why would the Rejuvenation Valley send him to the Incense Division? Based on Zhang Xiaohua's explanation, the Incense Division's true purpose was to teach him alchemy. Forget it. My current situation is not bad. This Ren Xiaoyao can be considered an arhat bestowed by the heavens. Since he can't refine pills, I'll use him for gambling in the future. Learning alchemy? It's better to practice martial arts and earn more pills for myself. Looking at Chen Fengxiao's back as he went down the mountain, Zhang Xiaohua also smiled. During this period of time, he had been tempering the jade box and organizing the herbs, so he had forgotten about his agreement with Chen Fengxiao. Since the Pill Division did not allow the Grass Division to have a share of the elixir room, Zhang Xiaohua was even more free. If he really lent the elixir room to the Grass Division, wouldn't Zhang Xiaohua become Chen Fengxiao's free alchemist? Bai Huan did not stay aside, Zhou Shuming did not peep from a distance, and Zhang Xiaohua did not return to the cave. He walked slowly to a corner of the herb field, and carefully looked at the seeds that had been watered with spring water. Wherever his divine sense passed, the primordial qi contained in the seeds seemed to be a little more than the other seeds. It seemed that if he continued to water them, there might be hope for them to germinate. Therefore, Zhang Xiahua now had to consider whether he should continue to water them. If he did not water them, naturally, the primordial qi in the seeds would not increase by itself, and they would not germinate. Of course, the inner core disciples would not know. On the contrary, Zhang Xiahua himself would not know whether the seeds would really germinate or not. Of course, if he continued to water them, although he could see his own thoughts, it would inevitably attract the attention of others. Of course, was Zhang Xiahua a person who was afraid of trouble? No, he was not. Therefore, Zhang Xiahua watered the seeds with some water again. The path of the immortal Tao required one to be diligent and diligent. If one were to retreat at the slightest bit of trouble, not to mention the effects, then the cultivation of one's temperament would be inferior. How would one be able to cultivate successfully? Zhang Xiahua returned to the alchemy room and tidied up the herbs. Then he placed the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace back onto the platform and ignited the fire. He was about to take out the bone solidifying pill formula from his money pouch when his divine sense noticed a dark green jade slip in the corner. Chapter 576. The dark green jade slip was obtained by Zhang Xiahua in the Misty School's library when the restriction was about to collapse. At that time, Zhang Xiahua did not have the ability to break the restriction on the jade slip, so he casually threw it into his money bag. Beside the jade slip, there was also a pair of red jade bracelets that he obtained when Lu Zhen angrily punished the tyrant. Taking out these 2 things, Zhang Xiahua carefully looked at them again. The fluctuation on the jade slip was still there, and there was no sign of dissipating, but the fluctuation on the red jade bracelets felt weaker than before. Without thinking too much, Zhang Xiahua first took the pair of jade bracelets in his hand. Now that Zhang Xiahua's vision had been broadened, he already knew that this jade bracelet was a kind of magic tool, not a jade slip that recorded the cultivation method like before. However, he still had no clue how to refine it and how to use it. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiahua closed his eyes and recalled the contents of Refining the World. Although Refining the World was a method to refine magic tools, it also recorded the refining method of ordinary magic tools. After looking at it for a long time, Zhang Xiahua already had a general idea in his heart. He had already refined the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace a few days ago. Although he did not use the general method in Refining the World, after all, he had some experience. He carefully recalled the refining steps from beginning to end in his heart. Then he threw the jade bracelet into the air, and his left hand made a seal to hit the jade bracelet. The seal hit the jade bracelet, but the jade bracelet did not seem to have any reaction. Zhang Xiahua was not in a hurry. He took a deep breath, and then followed the seal in an orderly manner. With the seal in, the dim jade bracelet gradually had some brilliance, just like the previous pill furnace, but the brilliance emitted by the jade bracelet was light red. The refining seal was all hit into the jade bracelet, but the jade bracelet still did not have much brilliance. Zhang Xiahua smiled. The heaven and earth essence in this jade bracelet was too serious. If it could be restored to its previous state with just a few seals, Zhang Xiahua would not believe it. So, Zhang Xiahua again hit the seal from beginning to end. This time, when the last seal was hit, the jade bracelet suddenly emitted a bright red light, and then a strong suction force was produced. Following the direction of the seal, the true qi in Zhang Xiahua's body was sucked in. Bad food, Zhang Xiahua was immediately shocked. He had encountered such a situation before. He did not dare to neglect. He took out the primordial stone from his arms and put it in one hand, and the true qi in the other hand was continuously poured into the jade bracelet. In a short time, the true qi in his body. What magic tool is this jade bracelet? Why does it need so much true qi? So while absorbing the primordial qi from the primordial stone, he also sent it into the jade bracelet. Alas, Zhang Xiahua was also bold. He was only in the middle stage of qi refining. Although that little true qi was a lot, if he wanted to drive the magic tool, especially this kind of magic tool that was about to lose its primordial qi, then he must first restore the lack of primordial qi. How could the heaven and earth essence be provided by Zhang Xiahua now? In this era where the primordial qi was scarce, It was almost impossible for others to do it. It was a good thing that Zhang Xiaohua had primeval stones. Otherwise he would have been sucked dry by the artifact if he tried to repair it. After an unknown period of time, the jade bracelet gradually floated in the air. The brilliance was no longer brilliant, and it became gentler. The speed of absorbing true qi also slowed down. Until now, Zhang Xiaohua had the leisure to look up at the pair of jade bracelets in the air. This was a pair of red luster jade bracelets engraved with some patterns. There was a faint flow of flames inside the jade bracelets. Looking at it carefully, there was nothing special about it. At this time, the primordial qi fluctuation on the jade bracelet was also extremely strong. Then, the jade bracelet stopped absorbing Zhang Xiaohua's true qi, and a fluctuation was transmitted into Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Zhang Xiaohua read the fluctuation and was overjoyed. He did not waste so much true qi. This fluctuation was the method to control the jade bracelet. It turned out that the name of this jade bracelet was Dragon Binding Bracelet. Just from the name, it could even bind a dragon. Zhang Xiaohua carefully studied the method to control it, and his heart gradually became more confident. With a wave of his hand, the floating dragon binding bracelet, that had returned to its original state, fell into his hand. Zhang Xiaohua fondled it lovingly for a while, and then kept it in his money bag. He wanted to try out the power of the dragon binding bracelet now, but the true qi in his body was already empty. How could he use it? Moreover, the time was already late, and he still had his daily routine to do. The next morning, Zhang Xiaohua finished his work as a grass sect disciple and released his divine sense. Looking carefully, he actually did not find Zhou Shuming, who had been spying on him. This guy hasn't been around for a few days. Did he catch some illness? And for sure. The wind on this mountain is strong, and he even climbed so high. How could he stand it, ha ha ha. As Zhang Xiaohua thought, he escaped to a place where there was no one. After confirming that there was no one around, Zhang Xiaohua took out the pair of jade bracelets from his arms. His left hand made a gesture, and threw the jade bracelets into the air. The jade bracelets expanded with the wind, and in an instant, they were 3 feet long. Zhang Xiaohua cast the spell, and pointed his finger at a towering mountain rock in the distance. The jade bracelets followed the direction of Zhang Xiaohua's finger, and flew over with a whoosh. In an instant, they covered the mountain rock from top to bottom. Then, Zhang Xiaohua began to make another gesture to activate the other functions of the jade bracelets. However, just as the gesture was made, Zhang Xiaohua felt that the true qi in his body was sucked dry. Moreover, the gesture was still not completed. What kind of gesture is this? It actually requires so much true qi? Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to use it again. He shook his hand and stopped the gesture midway. Fortunately, there were no signs of true qi backfiring. Looking at the 2 jade bracelets on the mountain rock, Zhang Xiaohua shook his head. Sigh, it wasn't easy to get a more advanced item, but I can't use it. This is really annoying. With a sigh, Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand. The jade bracelets flew back from the mountain rock, and shrunk back to their original size. Zhang Xiaohua reached out to catch them, and put them into his arms. At this moment, the corner of Zhang Xiaohua's eyes twitched. He immediately released his divine sense. On the mountain road, a thin and tall figure was using qinggong to climb up. Wasn't that the stalker Zhou Shuming who hadn't been seen for the past few days? When did this guy change from being in the dark to being in the open? Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. He then escaped underground and rushed to a corner of the medicine field before Zhou Shuming. When Zhou Shuming reached the top of Tianmu Peak, he saw Zhang Xiaohua standing on the ridge of the medicine field. It was the place where she used to work. Naturally, he did not suspect her. Before he reached her, he smiled and said, "Junior brother Ren, junior brother Ren?" Zhang Xiaohua pretended to be surprised. He turned his head and said, "Oh, so it's senior brother Zhou. I haven't seen you for a long time. Why did you suddenly come to our Tianmu Peak today?" At this moment, Bai Huan, who was lazing around in the small house, heard the call and walked out. She smiled charmingly and said, "Senior brother Zhou, what a rare guest." Zhou Shuming cupped his hands and said, "Ever since I lost to junior brother Ren, I've been facing the wall and thinking hard about why I lost to him. However, I haven't found an answer. Today, seeing junior brother cultivate so hard, as your senior brother, I'm really ashamed. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, but said, senior brother Zhou is too polite. I'm just used to working. If I don't work for a day, my hands and feet will itch. So Zhou Shuming waved his hand and said, Junior brother Ren, don't mention it. I used to be born with a hard life. It's just that I've enjoyed too much now, so I've regressed in martial arts. After he finished speaking, he turned to Bai Huan and said, Junior brother Bai, I have something to ask junior brother Ren. Do you think when Bai Huan heard this, she immediately pointed to a medicine field in the distance and said, Senior brother Zhou, you can talk to junior brother Ren. There's a medicine field over there that hasn't been watered yet. I'll go there now. You guys can talk. After she finished speaking, she winked at Zhang Xiaohua and walked away quickly. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Bai Huan's eyes and couldn't figure out what she meant by that. She could only turn to Zhou Shuming and ask, Senior brother Zhou, is there something urgent that you have to trouble you to go to the peak in person? Zhou Shuming looked around. There was no one else, but he was still worried. He pointed to a cliff and said, Junior brother Ren, let's talk over there. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Zhang Xiaohua to answer, and walked over first. Zhang Xiaohua didn't hesitate and followed behind him. When they reached the edge of the cliff, Zhou Shuming thought for a moment and said, Junior brother Ren, I'm here on behalf of our pill department's Wu Dalong to say a few words to you. I hope you can seriously consider it. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Puzzled, she asked, since Wu Dalong has something to do, why didn't he come up himself? Haha, this matter is a little complicated, so it's inconvenient for Dalong to come. However, Dalong hopes that only you and I will know about this matter. Don't let a fourth person know. What's the matter? Why is it so mysterious? Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. Haha, it's not a big deal. Maybe it's a good thing for you. As long as you agree, I'll tell you. Well, I won't tell anyone about this today. Senior brother Zhou, please tell me. Zhou Shuming nodded and said, Okay, since junior brother Ren has agreed, I'll get straight to the point. Junior brother Ren, do you want to learn the pill department's alchemy technique? How does senior brother Zhou know? Haha, don't ask too much about this. I'm just asking you according to Dalong's original words. You just need to answer. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, Yes, but I wonder if Dalong has a way to get the pill department's high priest to teach me the alchemy technique. Okay, it's just as Dalong expected. Dalong wants me to ask you again. If you learn the alchemy technique, are you willing to pay the price? Price? Zhang Xiaohua was curious. What exactly is the price? Zhou Shuming chuckled and said, It's very simple, it's your 500 taels of gold. As long as you take out 500 taels of gold, your wish to learn alchemy will be fulfilled. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.